Imagine yourself beneath a soft desert sky, the stars like ancient embers scattered across a great velvet tapestry. The air is warm, but it cools slightly with each breath of wind that glides over the dunes. Somewhere nearby, the slow hush of the Nile's current flows through papyrus reeds, and in the distance, the call of a nightbird echoes across the valley. This is the setting of our story. A world suspended between waking and dreaming, between history and the hush of legend. Long ago, in the still hours of night, Egypt did not sleep as soundly as it seemed. Beneath the cover of darkness, while the common folk lay curled in mud-brick homes, and the marketplace cats prowled silently through empty alleys, a hidden world of priests, stars, and sacred dreams stirred to life, and among them, wrapped in linen robes and scented with oil, walked a pharaoh said to be chosen not only by the gods, but by the realm of dreams itself. They called him Neferka. His name is barely a whisper in surviving records, not one of the famed rulers etched deeply into stone or endlessly discussed by scholars. Instead, Neferka lingers in the margins, an half-faded tablet in a ruined temple. In the half-formed stories retold by villagers and in dreams passed down through generations, they say he walked in sleep, but what he saw with his eyes closed mattered more than what he ever saw with them open. Neferka ruled not just by decree, but by dream. In the twilight before dawn, when the stars still held court and the desert remained cool, Neferka would rise from his bed not fully awake, not fully asleep. His attendants would find him already standing in the open courtyard of the palace, gazing toward the horizon as though waiting for a voice carried on the breeze. His eyes were open, but unfocused. His feet bare on the stone, and yet no one dared disturb him. The high priests of Serapis and Thoth warned that these wanderings were sacred. To interrupt them would be to sever the thread connecting the pharaoh to the gods. Nefero's dreams were not merely private wanderings of the mind, they were events. Every morning, a quiet ritual unfolded in the House of Dreams, sanctuary within the temple precincts, guarded by jackal-headed statues and softened by linen curtains that filtered the sunlight into pale golden strips. Here Neferka would sit with the dream interpreters, men trained from youth to understand the symbolism whispered in sleep. They did not speak quickly. They did not interrupt. Instead, they listened with their eyes closed, breathing deeply in unison with the pharaoh, as if trying to follow his thoughts back into the depths of the night. The dream journal's papyrus scrolls bound with careful not tell us curious things. In one, Neferka speaks of walking through fields of stone, where trees grew upside down and birds sang in forgotten tongues. In another, he stood before a river that flowed backward, watching silver fish leap toward the stars. The priests would murmur their interpretations, slowly, methodically. A backward river might signify time unraveling. Upside-down trees could mean the overturning of order. And the silver fish, they might be souls trying to return to the heavens. These interpretations were never rushed. The temple practiced what they called slow divination of belief, that meaning could not be forced from a dream, but must be allowed to surface, gently, like a lotus flower emerging from still water. Sometimes it took days for a single dream to be fully unraveled, and so the kingdom waited. Edicts were postponed, battles delayed, trade halted. The will of the pharaoh, shaped by what he had seen in the silence of the night, would not be known until the last scroll was sealed. It is said that during his reign, Neferka issued fewer laws than any pharaoh before him. His decisions came rarely, but when they did, they carried a gravity that settled deeply into the hearts of his people. One such decree involved the relocation of an entire village. Not for military or agricultural reasons, but because he dreamed of a great shadow swallowing the settlement whole. Weeks later, a tremor shook the region. The village, now empty, was swallowed by a sudden sinkhole. The people called him Seer Ching after that. But even in his stillness, even in the long silences that framed his rule, the machinery of the temple moved steadily. The priests who surrounded Neferka believed that the dreaming mind held more truth than the waking one. They built chambers beneath the temple's quiet, dark places filled with scented oils and low chanting, where initiates were taught to enter controlled states of dreaming. These rituals were known as the sleep of seeking. Wrapped in white linen, the dreamers lay in stone alcoves, their breaths shallow, their minds drifting, searching for answers in the starless inner realm. The world above them continued, oblivious. Farmers woke with the sun, guiding oxen through the furrowed earth. Children played beside the canals, their laughter echoing off mud brick walls. Women ground grain beneath shaded porticos. Life was slow, steady, anchored by the rhythms of the river. And yet, beneath it all, the dreams continued, always gently stirring. Nefarka's court was unlike any before or after. Instead of grand councils filled with booming voices and clashing opinions, it was often silent. His advisors waited patiently, sometimes for hours, for the pharaoh to speak. Sometimes he did not. Instead, he would slowly trace patterns into the sand-filled trays placed beside his throne. Spirals, waves, shapes no one could name. Occasionally a scribe would step forward and carefully sketch these patterns onto a scroll. Later, in the House of Dreams, they would be interpreted alongside his words. The people accepted this quiet strangeness, perhaps because the sun still rose on time. The taxes were low. The harvests were generous, or perhaps because they too believed in the power of dreams. In the villages, people often recited their dreams to one another as they baked bread or patched sails. They marked days on their calendar not just by the phases of the moon, but by the dreams of their pharaoh. If he dreamed of rain, they carried umbrellas made of palm leaves. If he dreamed of a lion, they kept children close. His dreaming became the weather of the nation, unpredictable but always watched. And then there was the story of the sandstorm. One summer, when the sun seemed to hang too long in the sky and the Nile had shrunk to a thin ribbon, Neferka had a dream of a red wind hot and full of voices. He described it as a wall that walked. He awoke, disoriented, and for 3 days he refused to eat or speak. The priests lit blue incense and hung carnelian beads from every doorway to ward off chaos. On the 4th day, the wind arrived. A storm of sand that darkened the sky for 2 full days, burying fields, silencing animals, and forcing the kingdom to huddle indoors. When the skies cleared, they said the pharaoh had not just seen the storm, but had spoken to it, whispered to it in the night, asked it to spare the temples and the city walls. And perhaps it had listened. The worst of the storm had passed just shy of the capital. The people, hushed and reverent, laid small offerings of salt and lotus petals on their rooftops in gratitude. Stories such as these accumulate like drifting sand softly, gradually and layer upon layer, until they form the dunes of memory. Not always solid, not always certain, but deeply familiar. Neferka's name never appeared on monuments. No towering statue bears his likeness. His was a quieter legacy, carved not into stone, but into sleep itself. And so we drift here, in this quiet chapter of history, held gently between what is known and what is imagined. In the hush of night, by the banks of a slow-moving river, a barefoot king walks through his dreams, followed by silent priests and the watchful stars above. Let us return once more to that slumbering land where the Nile whispered lullabies through fields of blue lotus, and the moon carved silver paths over temple roofs. Imagine yourself walking the long, quiet corridors of the dream house, where the air is thick with the scent of burning myrrh, and the hush is not simply expected, it is sacred. The walls are cool to the touch, etched with soft images of ibis, birds, coiled serpents, and stars. Shadows move slowly here, as if reluctant to disturb the silence that binds this ancient ritual space. Neferka, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh, sat once again beneath those painted stars. His expression unreadable, his fingers wrapped around a smooth bead of lapis lazuli. He had not spoken in days, but none were troubled. Silence was not a void in his quartet. It was a presence, a companion, a kind of listening. The dream interpreters would wait patiently, seated around him like petals around the heart of a flower. They studied not just the words he might eventually speak, but the way his breath slowed or quickened, the shape of his posture, and even the patterns in the sand he absently drew with his fingertips. Every gesture was part of the language of dreams. It was said that Neferka was born under an eclipse when the sun vanished behind the moon and the world dimmed in the middle of the day. The midwives whispered that such a child would carry a foot in each realm, one in the waking world and one in the beyond. Throughout his childhood, the boy would often wake in strange places, among the temple gardens, at the crocodile pool, even once within the crypt of a ruined tomb. He could never explain how he arrived there, but he always returned with words that were not his own. Words that spoke of rivers that gleamed like bronze, of boats that sailed across stars, and of doors that opened with no sound. The priests of Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, took great interest in this boy king. They began to teach him the sacred arts of sleep, not as a weakness to be overcome, but as a skill to be mastered. While other boys learned swordplay or strategy, Neferka learned how to quiet the heart, how to slow his breath until it matched the rhythm of desert winds. He was trained in the uses of blue lotus, how to prepare it in steeped infusions that thinned the veil between here and there. He learned which amulets to place beneath his pillow, and how to record a dream without speaking it aloud, so that the memory would not dissolve. In time, he grew into his role as Dream King, a figure not of war and conquest, but of inner sight. His court was not filled with noise and command, but with incense, ink, and the low hum of ritual chants. There were no grand processions through the cities. Instead, there were moonlit walks through temple courtyards, with only the sound of wind and the soft tread of sandaled feet. He wore not gold-plated armor, but simple white linen, often barefoot, and carried a staff carved with the symbols of mat, balance, harmony, and the quiet unfolding of truth. In those days, the Nile was kinder. Its floods came gently in smooth, measured surges that brought new life to the fields. Farmers attributed this not to luck or favorable stars, but to Neferka's dreams. They believed he spoke with the river gods in his sleep, negotiated with the crocodile spirits, and asked the waters to rise only so far and no farther. Offerings left by the riverbanks began to include tiny scrolls children's dreams, drawn with ink made of crushed berries and soot, folded and tied with thread, floated downstream with quiet prayers that the pharaoh might see them. And yet not all dreams are soft. There came a time, though the exact years blurred in the old scrolls, when Neferka began to dream of silence. Not peaceful silence, but a kind that pressed in too tightly, like the absence of breath. He described it to his priests as a hollow hum, a sound without voice. He saw cities where birds no longer sang, and temples where the statues wept salt instead of water. These dreams recurred, circling back night after night. The dream interpreters grew uneasy, but said little. The meanings came slowly. One morning, after a long and restless sleep, Neferka announced he would visit the desert alone. This, more than any of his previous actions, stirred whispers. Pharaohs did not go anywhere without a retinue, but Neferka was not any other ruler. And so he walked out into the golden emptiness beyond the city walls, clothed in white, carrying no provisions. Only a scroll tucked beneath his arm. He was gone for 2 days. When he returned, his skin was dry and cracked, his voice barely more than a whisper. But in his hand was a stone smooth, shaped like a crescent moon, warm despite the cool of dawn. He said he had found it while sleeping beneath the stars, guided by a voice that did not speak, but sang. He placed the stone on the altar of the dream house and decreed a new ritual, one that would be performed once each season, where the priests would sleep beneath the open sky, listen for songs in the silence, and report what they found. This event marked a shift, not an end, but a quiet turning. The latter years of Neferka's reign were marked by even greater stillness. He spoke less, slept more. Sometimes he remained in a state of dreaming for days. His attendants would keep a gentle vigil, ensuring his body was washed, perfumed, and shaded. The dream interpreters rotated in shifts, listening for murmurs, watching for movement beneath his eyelids, ready to record whatever fragments surfaced. It became clear that the pharaoh was slipping deeper not into illness, but into something beyond. And yet, even in this state, his kingdom did not falter. In fact, it seemed to flourish. The people had long grown accustomed to his silence, followed the rhythms he had set, the rituals of sleep, the symbols in the sand, the soft negotiations with gods seen only in dreams. They lived more slowly, more mindfully. There were fewer wars, more music. Children were taught to remember their dreams before they learned to write their names. In time, the day came when Neferka did not wake at all. He passed not with a cry or a gasp, but with a slow exhale, as if releasing the final thread that tied him to waking life. He was found lying peacefully in the dream house, his hand still resting on a half-written scroll. No grand tomb was built for him, no towering statue carved, Instead, he was buried beneath the temple floor, among the stone chambers where dreams were born and studied. His resting place was marked only by a circle of sand, refreshed each day by the priests, its edges redrawn each morning with quiet care, and still the dreams continued. It's said that long after his death, during the new moons, some of the priests claimed to see him walking the temple halls, his feet silent, his eyes half closed, trailing a scent of blue lotus and desert air. Not frightening, never frightening, only present. As if he had not truly left, but merely passed into a deeper layer of dreaming. Today, his name is scarcely mentioned in history books. Neferka the Sleepwalker is not listed among the great builders or conquerors. His reign is not measured in monuments or victories, but in the stillness of ancient libraries, on forgotten papyri tucked deep in the corners of museum vaults. His dreams remain. Gentle records of a kingdom that once chose to listen to the silence. So if ever you find yourself drifting to sleep with the sound of the wind outside, the softness of linen against your skin, and a feeling of being gently pulled toward something just beyond the edge of thought, perhaps, some small way, you too are following in the footsteps of the Dream King, walking softly beneath the stars, guided by voices only the sleeping can hear. The wind carries memory, they say, and in the valleys of Egypt, where the dunes drift slowly like waves on a forgotten sea, the silence speaks louder than words. There are places where no voice has been heard for centuries, and yet if you sit long enough, if you wait through the slow shift of sun and shadow, you might begin to feel the weight of something unspoken brushing just beneath the surface. That is where this chapter begins, not in the noise of the world, but in its stillness. Long after Neferka's breath faded into the quiet rhythms of the dream house, the memory of his reign lingered like incense in the folds of linen. Though the man was gone, the rituals endured. His name softly spoken, never chanted aloud, passed from priest to scribe to student. Not with the fanfare of legend, but with the intimate reverence of a lullaby whispered in the dark. Generations passed like the turning of the stars. Pharaohs rose and fell, their lives etched in grander stone, their wars recorded in columns that pierced the skies, under one particular temple, half buried by sand, known only by a name that translates as the place of listening. Neferka's traditions lived on. Here, silence was not absence. It was a form of devotion. At the heart of this temple, deep beneath the surface, where the light thinned into soft gray and torches flickered with quiet restraint, lay a chamber unlike any other. The chamber of breath. It had no doors. Only a narrow passage, low-ceilinged, requiring visitors to bow as they entered. The act of humility was not symbolic, it was essential. Those who came seeking the old knowledge had to first bend to it. Within the chamber, there were no inscriptions, no statues. Only a single slab of alabaster, smooth and cool to the touch, surrounded by low stone benches worn down by centuries of patient sitting. This was where the dream listeners came, not to speak, not to interpret, but simply to listen, to sleep, to wait. Among those who tended the chamber in the centuries after, Neferka was a young initiate named Sentai. She was not born into the priesthood, but came as a child abandoned during the season of the dry winds. Left at the edge of the temple walls, wrapped in linen marked with a single symbol, the feather of Mat. She was taken in without question, for among the dream keepers, no soul was turned away if it arrived in silence. Senti grew not with play or song, but with the quiet rituals of the temple. She learned to grind the blue lotus petals between stone bowls, to mix the powder with honey and river water into the faintly bitter draught that prepared the mind for sleep. She learned to breathe with the cadence of the reed flutes played at dusk, and to walk in sandals so soft they left no trace upon the sand. What set her apart, however, was not her discipline. It was her dreams. From the age of 7, Senti began to murmur in her sleep-not nonsense. Not the babble of a child's restless night, but fully formed sentences and languages even the eldest scribes could not identify. Sometimes they were songs. Other times they were directions detailed, specific paths through the desert marked by unseen cairns and distant stars. The high priest, an old man known only as Heka, began to spend nights in the chamber of breath beside her, recording everything she uttered with meticulous care. He never interrupted. He simply listened, Over time, patterns emerged. Symbols repeated. Names returned. The name of Neferka surfaced more than once, never in command, never in declaration, but as a gentle presence in her words. "He walks still," she once whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "Through the dunes where nothing stirs, his feet do not press the sand." This Heka noted carefully in the margins of his scroll. By the time Sentai reached her 12th year, the rituals had shifted. She was no longer an initiate, but something more delicate, something between oracle and messenger. Not worshipped, never that, but regarded with the same quiet awe one reserves for the first breeze after a long, breathless heat. And it was then that she began to draw. On long strips of linen, with ink made of soot and ochre, she traced shapes that resembled maps, but not of any known land. Swirls and spirals, dotted paths, symbols half familiar. One recurring figure stood at the center of many drawings. A tall, still figure, head bowed. Arms crossed over the chest in the style of the old kings, and around him waves. Not water, but waves of something softer. Dream, sleep, time. Sentai never claimed to understand her own work. She never explained. Only once did she offer a comment softly while placing a scroll into Heka's hands. "I do not see them," she said. "I remember them." The distinction puzzled him, and yet he knew better than to ask further. With dream speech, meaning often arrived much later, sometimes in sleep, sometimes in silence. It was during the second moon of her 15th year that Senti fell into a dream sleep that lasted 3 days. During that time, the sky remained unusually still. Not a single gust of wind passed over the dunes. Birds avoided the temple walls. Even the Nile, so often restless at the banks, seemed to hush itself. When she awoke, her eyes filled not with confusion, but calm. She rose, asked for ink, and wrote a single sentence. "He waits where the dreams no longer touch the waking world." That evening, Heka called a gathering of the temple's oldest keepers. They lit a circle of oil lamps around the slab of alabaster, placed Senti in its center, and sat in the same silence passed down since Neferka's reign. They asked no questions. They simply waited. Senti did not speak again that night. But when she returned to her sleep, her hands moved. Without waking, she began to draw. Her fingers dipped into ink, her movements careful, unhurried. When morning came, the drawings revealed something unexpected. Not a vision, not a message, but a doorway. What appeared on the linen was an arch, unlike any structure known to their time. Its edges were formed from repeating symbols, some sacred, some unknown, and through the arch an emptiness, not darkness. Dot, dot, but something untouched. Something that stirred the hearts of even the most seasoned priests with a tremble they could not name. Heka studied the design for days, then weeks. Others joined him, comparing the patterns to ancient stelas, forgotten fragments stored in the temple's deepest vaults. Slowly, slowly, a picture began to emerge. They believed this was not metaphor, but memory. A record, not a prophecy. A map, not a dream. And at the center of it all, once again, the gentle presence of Neferka. They began to suspect that Neferka's greatest journey had not ended with his burial. That perhaps his sleep had carried him deeper than any priest had ever dared to travel. That he had reached a realm where dreams themselves were born, a threshold between mind and memory, silence and self. It was not a frightening idea, quite the opposite. It was soothing, comforting, that the king had not perished, but simply drifted. Further, Senti never confirmed these thoughts aloud. She simply continued to draw, sleep, and walk the corridors in slow silence, her presence calming, like a breeze brushing gently through sun-warmed curtains. And each time the priests asked themselves whether they were watching history or dream unfold, they would remember the old words carved faintly at the temple entrance. "Speak softly here, for the sleepers walk." It is said that in Egypt, memory is not held in the mind alone. It is stored in the land. Every stone that has withstood the sun's relentless gaze, every grain of sand that has drifted across time-worn inscriptions, holds a trace of what came before. Beneath the hum of the desert wind lies a hum of another kind, fainter, deeper, a memory in motion. And it was into this hushed undercurrent that the temple's quiet order began to listen more intently than ever. After Senti's linen map was completed, her vision of a doorway not made of stone, but of symbols. Life within the Temple of Listening shifted, imperceptibly at first. Tasks continued as they always had. The incense was burned at the 6th hour. The blue lotus was crushed in slow, meditative circles. The outer gates were swept of sand each morning with the same reed brooms used for generations. And yet among the priests, a new attention had emerged. A kind of sacred alertness. For if Neferka had indeed drifted past the boundary of known dreaming, and if Senti's drawings were more than echoes, then the temple itself was no longer merely a place of remembrance, it was a place of passage. The idea was never spoken aloud in full. No declaration was made. There was no council, no vote, no dramatic realization. It simply settled in, like dew in the pre-dawn air, present and certain. Heka the high priest, now far into his 80s and whose hands trembled slightly as he wrote, found himself waking at odd hours, compelled to reread old scrolls, especially those written in the hand of his own master who had spoken of strange visions. During sleep fasts, taken beside the alabaster slab, visions of corridors of silence, rooms that inhaled and exhaled, doors that never opened yet could be walked through if one forgot they were closed. Heka began to wonder whether all the temple's quiet traditions, the sleep dreaming, the gentle mutterings of the initiates, the practice of drawing the unseen, were not simply rituals of remembrance, but rituals of navigation, not a map to the past, but to somewhere adjacent, another layer of the world, pressed close to this one, visible only when the waking mind softened. Senti's sleep remained long and undisturbed after the drawings. She did not fall into the same trance-like state again immediately. Instead, she moved about the temple slowly, her footsteps always aligned with the shadows, her eyes thoughtful but not distant. When spoken to, she replied in few words, never rude, always present, but with a softness that suggested she was also somewhere else, walking to corridors at once. One afternoon, during the hour of long shadows, when the sun stretched the temple's eastern pillars into giant silhouette, she asked to be taken to the Chamber of Dust. The room was rarely used, its entrance sealed for years by a slow encroachment of sand. It was not a grand hall, not a sacred shrine, just a simple storage chamber carved long ago to hold fragments, broken statuettes, partial inscriptions, damaged scrolls too fragile for the main archive, the forgotten shelf of history. When the priests opened the door for her, the air that spilled out smelled of time-faint resin, dusted papyrus, stone warmed and cooled for centuries. Sentai stepped inside and, without hesitation, walked directly to a darkened corner. There, beneath a crumbling basket of limestone shards, she uncovered a slab not catalogued on any scroll. It was obsidian dark, unlike any material from the region, smooth and cold to the touch, despite the heat. Across its surface, faint etchings shimmered in light, but vanished in shadow. Symbols, not of any known script, but eerily reminiscent of those she had drawn weeks earlier. Wave-like lines, nested spirals, central motif. 2 eyes, one open, one closed, surrounded by 12 tiny stars. Heka joined her, silent. Together they sat before it for hours, the sun slowly dipping, the shadows lengthening. The temple grew quieter still, as if even the stones were listening. The slab, they later realized, had no true language. It was not to be read, it was to be remembered. Sentai confirmed this not with words, but with dreams. That night, she returned to the Chamber of Breath and lay down without the usual preparation. No draft of lotus, no oil on the brow, just silence and sleep. For 2 nights, she did not stir. On the 3rd, her breathing slowed even further. And then, a whisper escaped her lips, not frantic, not prophetic, just a sentence, quiet as linen folding. I walked the place that was not made, and he was there. The scribes, seated nearby with reed pens poised above parchment, paused. The simplicity of the sentence made it heavier somehow, more truthful, like something remembered, not imagined. In the following days, Sentai became increasingly quiet. Her drawing ceased. Instead, she began to walk the temple in patterns, the same loops, the same turns, as if retracing steps she had taken in her sleep. When Heka asked her what she was doing, she replied, It's the way back. Back to what he did not ask. He suspected the answer was not meant to be given, only discovered. In time, others began to walk the patterns with her, at first in curiosity, then in reverence. These movements, simple and circular, became a kind of dance, a walking meditation. The temple's rhythm shifted again, less verbal, more breath and motion. Then came the day the sandstorm arrived. It had been years since the last great wind, but on that morning, a curtain of gold and beige rose over the eastern horizon, moving with impossible precision. The desert birds vanished. Sky dimmed, though no clouds stirred. The priests sealed the outer gates and waited, as was custom. And yet within the temple walls, there was no fear, only stillness. Senti, standing in the outer courtyard just before the gates were closed, did not move. Her linen robes danced lightly in the breeze, but her feet remained rooted. As the storm approached, she whispered a word, perhaps a name, perhaps not, and held her palms outward, not to resist, but to feel. The wind reached her, passed through her, around her hand, then curved impossibly away from the temple. The sand did not breach the walls. Heka, watching from the shadows, bowed his head. That night, Senti slept in the outer courtyard. No slab, no guards, no chamber. Beneath the open stars, with only the whisper of the wind and the breathing earth beneath her. And in the morning, she was gone. No footprints led away, no trace of disturbed sand. Her robes were neatly folded at the base of the altar, beside a small clay jar of lotus paste, and a single blue feather, the symbol of Mat, the one she had been wrapped in as an infant. In her place, a single scroll, rolled tight, bound in palm twine. When Heka opened it, he found no text. Only a simple illustration, a door, half open, and beside it, a still figure walking not through, but into the silence. Sente, it seemed, had followed Neferka into the dreaming. Not as a servant, not as a seeker, but as a guide, a fellow walker of the silent path. And so the temple changed, no longer a place only for listening, but for preparing. The drawings she had made were studied not as mysteries, but as maps. The walking patterns became a daily ritual. Initiates were taught not only to read and recite, but to remember in silence, to breathe in rhythm with the wind, and to wait not for answers, but for presence. In the soft unfolding of the Nile's early morning, the temple sat quiet, its walls warm from the retreating sun. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, mingled with the delicate perfume of lotus flowers, their pale petals nodding gently as a breeze passed through the columns. The temple, though old and worn, seemed to breathe alongside the river itself, steady, slow, eternal. It was a place where time moved differently, where the rhythm of life slowed to match the eternal pulse of stone and water. Within these walls, the story of Neferka and his silent walk through dreams had become more than legend. It had become a living memory, held in the very fabric of the temple's stones, whispered through the soft cracks in the plaster, and carried in the faint echo of footsteps on the sanded floor. Senti's disappearance, mysterious and gentle, had changed everything. The initiates who once sought only to listen now learned to watch, to feel, to become attuned to the unseen currents that danced invisibly between waking and sleeping. And though she was gone, her presence lingered, a quiet shadow woven through the temple's breath. Among the new generation of priests was a young man named Kem. His eyes held the calm of still water, his movements precise and unhurried. Unlike Senti, who had come to the temple as a child in silence, Kem was born within its walls, his cradle nestled near the chamber of breath. He had grown with the gentle cadence of rituals, the slow weaving of prayers, and the steady rhythm of dream watchers' breaths. But Kem carried within him a restlessness, subtle, almost imperceptible, a flicker of curiosity that whispered against the smooth surface of obedience. He was drawn not only to the quiet and the stillness, but to the moments when the silence seemed to ripple as if holding secrets just beyond reach. It was during one of these quiet dawns that Kem found himself lingering near the Whispering Wall, a long stretch of sandstone deep within the temple's heart. The wall was ancient, its surface etched with faint carvings, faded beyond easy recognition. Only the oldest priests remembered its stories, and fewer still spoke of them openly. The Whispering Wall was said to hold the voices of those who had passed through the dream threshold before, not in words but in echoes, the subtle vibrations of breath and thought trapped in the very stone. If one pressed an ear close enough, if the world softened and the mind quieted, it was said the wall would murmur secrets of journeys between worlds. Kem approached the wall slowly, feeling the rough texture beneath his fingertips. The surface was warm from the sun, but beneath that warmth was something cooler, a subtle pulse, as if the stone itself were alive in some way. He leaned closer, heart steady but expectant. At first, there was only silence. Then, a faint sound, barely audible, like the soft sigh of wind through dry reeds. A voice? No, not quite. More like the shifting of thoughts, the faint stirring of memories woven into stone. Kem closed his eyes, allowing the quiet to deepen. The world narrowed until only the breath of the wall remained, a gentle vibration humming through his skin. Shapes began to form in the darkness behind his eyelids, patterns of light and shadow, not unlike the drawings Senti had made. Spirals and waves, stars and eyes, symbols that seemed to dance on the edge of understanding. He did not pull away. Instead, he let himself be carried, drifting slowly through this silent sea. The wall's whisper was not a voice to be heard with ears, but with the heart. It spoke of journeys of feet that walked without leaving tracks, of shadows that moved beneath the sand, of a king who no longer slept but wandered through a place beyond time. Kem's breath slowed, matching the rhythm of the stone's pulse. He was no longer just a priest. He was a listener among listeners, a dreamer among dreamers. The boundaries between waking and sleeping blurred as he sank deeper into the wall's memory. And then, as if summoned by his stillness, a new vision unfolded. Not in the dark behind closed eyes, but before him, faint as a mist, yet vivid enough to feel. A scene from long ago, long before the temple was built, desert night under a vast sky. Stars blazing like jewels scattered across black velvet. There, at the center of the vision, stood Neferka. His figure was tall and still, robes flowing like liquid shadow. Around him, the desert shimmered, not with heat, but with the light of dreams. He was neither fully awake nor entirely asleep, but something between a walk of sleep and silence, a passage through realms unseen. Kem watched as Neferka raised his hand, and the desert responded. Waves of sand rose and fell like gentle tides, revealing hidden paths and forgotten places. The king's footsteps did not touch the earth, but floated above it, carried on currents of wind and time. The vision faded slowly, leaving Kem breathless, with a sense of awe and quiet longing. When he opened his eyes, the sun had shifted, casting soft amber light across the sandstone. The Whispering Wall was still, silent once more, as if nothing had happened. Yet Kem knew differently. Something had changed. A door within himself had opened, a passageway not unlike those Senti had drawn. The days that followed, Kem returned off into the wall, seeking the faint murmurs that danced just beyond hearing. The temple around him carried on with its slow, measured rhythm, the priests continuing their duties with quiet devotion. But for Kem, each moment was tinged with a new awareness. The temple was not just a place of sleep and silence. It was a gateway, and the Dreamwalker King was waiting. One afternoon, during the hour of golden light, Kem was summoned to the Chamber of Breath. The alabaster slab gleamed softly in the fading sun, surrounded by a ring of oil lamps that flickered with steady flame. There Heka awaited him, the old high priest's eyes sharp despite the years. Heka spoke quietly, his voice like wind over dry leaves. Kem nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. I have seen him, the king, walking beyond the world we know. Heka smiled faintly, a smile that held both sorrow and hope. Neferka's journey is not finished. It is the path we all must one day take. Together, they sat in silence, breathing with the slow pulse of the temple. Heka spoke of the ancient rite of passage, The sleepwalk through the realms of memory and dream, the crossing of thresholds where time and space dissolve. You must prepare, Heka said. Not with haste or fear, but with patience. The dreamwalker's path is gentle and unhurried. It asks only that you truly listen to the world beneath the world. As the oil lamps flickered and the night deepened, Kem felt the first stirrings of a long, slow journey. One that would carry him through the silent corridors of sleep, guided by the footsteps of a king who walked where dreams and waking meet. Outside, the wind murmured softly through the temple columns, carrying the scent of lotus and the faint dust of the desert, but with the gentle care of one recounting a long-remembered secret. The path Neferka walked is not marked by footsteps, but by silence, Heka said, voice low and deliberate. Where memory and time fold into each other like waves upon the Nile? Kem absorbed the words slowly, feeling them settle like warm sand beneath his skin. He understood that this was more than history. It was an invitation to a way of being, an ancient practice lost to most but preserved here within the walls of the temple. Heka continued, tracing a finger along the alabaster slab that had been the silent witness to so many dreamers before them. Neferka was the first to walk this path fully awake, yet wholly surrendered. The temple's rites have long sought to prepare initiates for this journey, but few have truly stepped beyond. Kum's gaze lingered on the slab's smooth surface, imagining the quiet footsteps that must have pressed there long ago. It was a surrender to the unknown, a dance with shadows that held no threat, but instead promised discovery. As days folded into nights, Kem began his own preparation, guided by Heka and the teachings etched in both word and silence. His mornings started with slow, mindful breathing beside the river, the rhythm of the water echoing the steady beat he sought within himself. His hands learned the careful motions of drawing symbols, tracing spirals and stars, each line a thread weaving him closer to the hidden realms. The afternoons passed with long walks through the temple, his footsteps light and measured, echoing the patterns Sente had once traced. They were prayers, a moving meditation that slowed the mind and opened the heart to the faint whispers that drifted between waking and dreaming. Each evening, before the final hour of dusk, Kem would visit the Chamber of Dust, the quiet room where Sentai had discovered the obsidian slab etched with mysterious symbols. Here, he would sit in stillness, hands resting on the cool stone, eyes closed to the world but open to the soft vibrations beneath. It was in this quiet communion that Kem began to feel the shifting boundary between worlds. The stone beneath his palms would pulse gently, like the slow, deep breathing of the earth itself. Shapes and patterns flickered in the darkness behind his eyelids, elusive as desert mirages, beckoning him deeper into the silent labyrinth of memory and dream. One night, as the temple lay bathed in silver moonlight, Kem awoke with a start. The room was filled with a faint luminescence, soft and undulating, as if the walls themselves breathed light. The air was cool, carrying the scent of lotus and something else, something ancient and untouched. His steps were soundless on the cool stone floor, his heart steady, yet alight with quiet anticipation. As he approached, the symbols on the slab seemed to glow faintly, the eyes one open, one closed, shimmering like twin stars in the night. He placed his palms gently on the surface, and in that moment, the world shifted. The chamber dissolved around him, replaced by a vast desert under an endless sky, the stars burning bright and clear. Kem walked forward, his feet barely touching the sand, guided by a faint light that pulsed with the rhythm of his own breath. The path was winding and uncertain, a gentle undulation of dunes and shadow. The desert sang a low, constant hum that echoed the heartbeat of the world. Their faces were serene, eyes half closed, walking without haste, but with purpose.
Oh.
Among them, Kem recognized Sentai, her presence as calm and radiant as ever, a guide and companion on this quiet pilgrimage. Together, they moved through the dreamscape, past ancient temples lost to time, through corridors carved of starlight and shadow. The journey was not without moments of stillness, pauses where the dreamers simply stood and listened to the vastness around them. Time was a circle here, folding back on itself like the gentle waves of the Nile at dusk. He understood now that the Dreamwalker's path was not about discovery in the sense of finding new lands or treasures. It was about remembrance, remembering the rhythm, beneath the visible. The truth that had always been whispered by the desert winds and etched into the temple walls. When Kem awoke, the first light of dawn filtered softly through the temple's windows, casting pale gold upon the alabaster slab. His heart was calm, steady, and his mind clear as the desert sky. He rose slowly, carrying with him the quiet presence of the dream journey. The temple around him was still waking, the birds beginning their gentle songs, the lotus petals unfolding to greet the sun. But for Kem, the world had deepened. Every stone, every breath of wind, every soft footstep now a thread in the vast tapestry of sleep and memory. The days ahead would bring new challenges and new mysteries, but Kem no longer feared the unknown. He had walked the path of quiet steps, and in doing so, had found a place where waking and sleeping intertwined. A place where the Sleepwalker Pharaoh still walked, silent and sure, through the endless night. The days grew longer as the sun arced higher over the Nile, spilling golden light across the temple's sandstone columns and the smooth river's surface. The scent of lotus and reeds softened the heat, while a gentle breeze carried whispers from the desert beyond, like the soft breath of something ancient, unseen but ever present. The rhythm of the temple continued, slow and steady, as if time itself had settled into a calm, unhurried flow. For Kem, this time was marked by quiet preparation. His footsteps were lighter, his breath more even, as if he had learned to move in harmony with the world's hidden pulse. He spent long hours in meditation beside the riverbank, listening to the gentle rush of water, the call of distant birds, and the faint stirring of the wind in the papyrus reeds. In these moments, the boundary between waking and dreaming seemed to waver, and Kem's mind drifted toward the endless night where the Sleepwalker Pharaoh still wandered. But the path was not without its shadows. In the quiet corners of the temple, whispers stirred among the priests, soft words about the dangers of lingering too long in the realms between. Tales of lost souls caught in dreams from which they could not awaken. The old stories spoke of delicate balance, a thread that must never be broken, or else the dreamer risked vanishing into the vast silence beyond. Kem was aware of these warnings, yet he felt no fear. Dead, a deep sense of reverence. The journey was not one of reckless wandering, but careful listening, a steady step into the unknown guided by the steady beat of the heart. The temple was his anchor, the rituals his compass, and the memory of Senti, his quiet beacon. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky blushed with the soft hues of twilight, Kem found himself drawn once again to the chamber of breath. The alabaster slab glowed faintly in the lamplight, the twin eyes carved upon its surface watching silently. He settled beside it, closing his eyes and breathing slowly, allowing the temple's pulse to merge with his own. The silence deepened until it felt like a living thing, wrapping around him like a warm cloak. Then, as if called by some invisible thread, the vision returned. The desert night stretched wide before him, stars shimmering like scattered jewels. Neferka stood at the center, his figure bathed in silver light, eyes calm and steady. This time, the pharaoh did not walk alone. Around him moved the spirits of the night shadows draped in linen, faces serene and unreadable, their footsteps soundless on the shifting sand. They were guardians, guides, and companions, each one part of the eternal dance between waking and sleeping. Kem felt himself step forward, joining the procession without hesitation. The dreamscape unfolded like a vast tapestry, each thread woven with light and shadow, memory and promise. Together, they moved beyond the boundaries of time, through ancient temples lost beneath sands, across endless dunes that shimmered beneath the stars. The air was thick with the scent of myrrh and incense, delicate and sweet, mingling with the earth's cool breath. A soft murmur drifted through the dreamscape, a melody without words, a song of the night itself. Kem's senses opened wider, every sound and sent a thread drawing him deeper into the vast, quiet mystery. As the procession moved, Neferka's gaze met Kem's steady and unblinking. There was no need for words. The connection was silent, profound. The king was no longer a distant figure of legend, but a guide of presence both ancient and immediate, walking the boundary between worlds with grace and certainty. The dreamscape shifted again, revealing a temple carved not of stone, but of light and shadow. Its walls shimmered like the surface of the Nile at dawn, reflecting the soft colors of the waking world. Within this luminous space, symbols glowed softly, eyes half closed in eternal watchfulness. Spirals turning slowly like the wheel of time, and stars that pulsed with a gentle, steady rhythm. Kem stepped inside, feeling the cool light wrap around him like a gentle tide. The temple was alive with the breath of countless dreamers, their memories folded into every corner and crevice. Here, the past and present merged, weaving a tapestry of stories both forgotten and remembered. In the center of the temple lay an obsidian altar, smooth and dark as the night sky, which Kem approached with reverence, placing his hands upon its surface. Stone pulsed beneath his palms, a slow, steady heartbeat that seemed to echo the rhythm of his own breath. From the depths of the altar, a soft light began to glow, rising slowly like the dawn. The temple filled with a gentle warmth, wrapping Kem in a cocoon of calm and clarity. Images flickered within the light, visions of ancient rites, of kings and priests walking the dream paths, of silent footsteps echoing across the sands of time. Kem felt a deep sense of connection, a thread that bound him not only to Neferka, but to all who had walked this path before him. The Dreamwalker's journey was not a solitary one. It was a shared passage through the realms of memory and spirit, a dance of shadows and light that linked past and present, waking and sleeping. The vision faded slowly, leaving Kem wrapped in the gentle glow of the temple's light. When he opened his eyes, the chamber of breath was still, the alabaster slab cooled beneath his hands. The night outside was deep and quiet, the stars bright and steady above the temple's roof. Kem rose slowly, carrying the calm of the dreamscape within him. The path ahead was long and winding, filled with mysteries both ancient and new, but he no longer walked alone. The pharaoh's silent steps echoed in his heart, guiding him beneath the veil of stars and into the endless night. The night air was cool and still as Kem left the chamber of breath, his footsteps almost inaudible on the temple's smooth stone floor. The temple itself seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the journey unfolding within its walls, an ancient secret, carried forward through silent rituals and whispered prayers. Outside, the desert winds sighed softly, stirring the tall grasses along the Nile's edge, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and water mingled with the lingering aroma of lotus blossoms. Kam's mind lingered on the vision, the tapestry of light and shadow that had unfolded within the Temple of Dreams. There was a weightless clarity to it, a sense that beneath the veil of stars, time folded in on itself, revealing truths not bound by the ordinary flow of days and years. Here, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh was not merely a figure of legend or history, but a living presence, moving steadily through realms that crossed the threshold of waking and dreaming. In the stillness of that night, Kem found himself drawn back to the riverbank, where the gentle current whispered of timeless journeys and secret paths. He settled among the reeds, the cool touch of the river's edge soothing beneath his fingers, and let his thoughts drift as freely as the water. The sky above was a deep indigo canvas, scattered with stars like scattered jewels, each one shining with a steady, ancient light. He imagined the pharaoh once more, walking those silent dunes with the soft rustle of linen against sand.
No.
Neferka's steps were measured, not hurried on unbroken rhythm, like the gentle flow of the Nile itself. The desert night was alive with sound and movement, if one listened closely the distant call of an owl, the rustling of nocturnal creatures hidden beneath the shifting sands, the faint murmur of wind carrying distant voices through the darkness. Kam's breath slowed, his heartbeat settling into the quiet cadence of the night. The temple's lessons echoed in his mind, each breath a bridge between worlds, each step a thread woven into the vast tapestry of memory and spirit. It was here, beneath the endless sky, that he felt the true nature of the sleepwalker's path of journey, not of escape, but of deep connection and understanding. The next days unfolded in gentle repetition, marked by quiet rituals and slow, deliberate movement. Mornings began with the soft light of dawn filtering through the temple windows, spilling golden hues over the smooth stones and columns. Kem would rise early, walking barefoot along the cool marble floors, feeling the texture of the earth beneath his feet as he made his way to the river. The water was always calm in those early hours, reflecting the awakening sky like a mirror. Kem would sit for long moments, eyes closed, breathing in the mingled scents of lotus, papyrus, and damp earth, letting the rhythm of the flowing river guide him into stillness. Each breath was a step further into the silence, each exhale a letting go of the day's worries and distractions. The temple priests observed him with quiet approval, noting the calm that settled over his features, the slow deepening of his focus. He was no longer merely a student, but becoming a keeper of the ancient ways of Dreamwalker in his own right, moving gently between the worlds with a steady heart and open mind. One evening, as twilight deepened into night, Kem found himself in the Hall of Stars, a vast chamber carved from dark stone and illuminated by hundreds of tiny oil lamps. The ceiling was painted with constellations, each star carefully mapped and named by generations long past. Here, the temple's scholars gathered to study the heavens, tracing the movements of planets and stars that guided the rhythms of the earth. Kem sat quietly among them, listening to the low murmur of voices, the soft turning of parchment, the occasional clink of a ceramic cup. The temple was alive with gentle energy knowledge, passed down through the ages, carried forward on the breath of stories and the steady hand of ritual. As he gazed upward, the painted stars seemed to pulse softly, as if responding to the quiet beat of his own pulse. The ancient constellations spoke of journeys and transformations, of kings and priests who had walked these paths before, guided by the same celestial light. Kem felt the connection deepen, the invisible threads tying him to the vast web of time and space. Later that night, as the temple settled into silence, Kem returned once more to the Chamber of Breath. The alabaster slab awaited him, its surface cool and smooth beneath his hands. Closing his eyes, he allowed himself to drift into the familiar dreamscape, the desert night unfolding once again beneath a sky dense with stars. Neferka appeared as before, steady and serene, leading the procession of silent figures across the shifting sands. The dreamscape pulsed with light and shadow, every step a note in the slow, endless melody of the night. Kem moved beside the pharaoh, feeling the steady pull of the journey deeper into the realm where time and memory blended. They reached a place unlike any before, a vast oasis, hidden deep within the dream desert. Palm trees swayed gently in an unseen breeze, their fronds whispering soft secrets. The water of the spring was clear and still, reflecting the star-studded sky like a dark mirror. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and myrrh, delicate and intoxicating. Kem knelt by the water's edge, dipping his hands into the cool liquid. The surface shimmered, and as he looked closer, he saw not only his reflection, but images unfolding beneath visions of past kings and dreamwalkers, their faces calm and focused, their eyes gazing into the depths of time. The oasis was a place of rest and renewal, a sanctuary within the endless journey. Here the boundaries between worlds grew thin, and the veil between waking and dreaming fluttered like a soft curtain in the wind. It was a reminder that the path of the sleepwalker was never solitary, but woven from the lives and stories of countless others. Rising, Kem felt a deep sense of peace. The dreamscape shifted once more, the oasis fading into the soft glow of dawn as he returned to the temple's quiet stone chamber. Opening his eyes, he found himself surrounded by the gentle stillness of the early morning. The temple's rhythm continued, unhurried and steady, carrying him forward through the endless night and into the soft light of day. Kem knew the path ahead would be long, filled with mysteries both ancient and new, but he no longer feared the darkness. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh had shown him the way, one of quiet steps and steady breath beneath the veil of stars. The light of dawn crept gently over the horizon, painting the desert with soft hues of rose and gold. The air was still, heavy with the scent of warm earth and dry grass. Carrying the faintest whisper of the distant Nile, the temple lay quiet, stones cool and shadowed beneath the waking sky, as if holding on to the last breaths of night before the sun would claim the day. Kem stirred slowly, rising from his simple mat beside the riverbank. The water's surface shimmered softly in the early light, a mirror reflecting the sky's gradual awakening. He moved with deliberate care, each step measured and steady, as though the rhythm of his footsteps might disturb some fragile balance hidden beneath the day's calm. His mind lingered on the dreams that had been his companions these past weeks, the silent desert marches, the shimmering temples of light and shadow, the pharaoh's steady gaze that seemed to reach beyond time itself. These dreams were not like ordinary sleep's fleeting images, but deep journeys into the heart of a world where past and present, waking and sleeping, merged seamlessly into one. Today, Kem felt a quiet urgency beneath the stillness. The visions had shifted subtly, drawing him toward a place he had not yet seen, a realm whispered about in the temple's oldest scrolls, spoken of only in hushed tones by the priests who guarded their secrets. It was the realm of the Whispering Sands, a place said to lie beyond the edges of the known desert, where the veil between worlds was thinnest. As he prepared to leave the temple, the familiar scent of incense mingled with the warm earth, filled the air, a gentle reminder of the countless generations who had walked this path before him. The priests offered no words of caution or farewell, only steady, silent glances filled with quiet understanding. Kem knew his journey was both solitary and shared, a passage made possible by the steady rhythm of rituals and memory. Stepping outside, he felt the desert's embrace, the sun's early warmth on his skin, the coarse grain of sand beneath his sandals, and the endless expanse of sky stretching far above, deep and endless like a dream itself. The world seemed to hold its breath as he set forth, the distant dunes rising and falling like the slow swell of a vast, silent ocean. The Whispering Sands were said to speak only to those who could listen without haste or fear. Their voices carried on the wind like the soft rustle of linen or the gentle sigh of ancient stone. Kem moved slowly, attuning his senses to the subtle melodies hidden beneath the desert's stillness. The air shimmered faintly with heat, blurring the horizon where earth and sky touched in a hazy embrace. Hours passed with no clear sign of his destination, only the steady rhythm of footsteps and breath, the slow dance of light and shadow across the dunes. The desert was alive with quiet life, the distant call of a lizard, the faint rustle of dry grasses, the whisper of wind weaving through scattered stones. These were the companions of the sleepwalker, the steady pulse of the world beneath the stars. As the sun climbed higher, the temperature rose gently, warming the sand until it felt soft and yielding beneath his feet. Kem paused often, resting beside clusters of hardy shrubs or beneath the sparse shade of a lone acacia tree. Each pause was a moment of stillness, a breath taken in harmony with the earth's own slow, steady rhythm. Toward midday, the horizon began to shift. The dunes stretched further, their curves sharper and shadows deeper, until Kem found himself facing a vast expanse where the sand shimmered with a strange, almost otherworldly light. Here, the Whispering Sands spoke more clearly, soft murmurs that seemed to rise from the earth itself, carried on currents of warm air. He knelt to touch the sand, fingers sifting through the fine grains that sparkled faintly in the sunlight, like tiny fragments of crushed crystal. The texture was smooth and cool, surprisingly alive beneath his touch, as if holding the memory of countless footsteps that had passed this way long ago. The whispers grew louder, a soft chorus woven from the breath of the desert, the sigh of the wind, and the distant steady flow of the Nile. Kem closed his eyes, letting the sounds wash over him. In the silence behind the whispers, he sensed a presence, a deep, patient knowing that stretched beyond words or thought. The desert was not empty or lifeless. It was a vast archive of memory, a place where time folded and stories were etched into every grain of sand. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the dunes. The light softened, turning the landscape into a realm of gentle contrasts, warm golds and cool blues, soft browns and shimmering silvers. Kem rose and continued walking, guided not by sight alone, but by the subtle pulse of the desert's heart. As dusk approached, the temperature cooled and the first stars began to prick the sky. The Whispering Sands took on a new voice, their murmurs deepening into a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground and into Kem's very bones. It was a sound both ancient and timeless, like the distant beating of a drum marking the rhythm of the earth itself. Ahead, a shadowy figure emerged from the twilight, a solitary priest garbed in linen, his face calm and eyes reflecting the faint light of the stars. Kem recognized him immediately. It was Amenhotep, the guardian of the desert's secret paths and keeper of the ancient rites. Without a word, Amenhotep extended his hand, inviting Kem to follow deeper into the Whispering Sands. The two moved side by side, their footsteps silent on the soft earth, the air thick with the scent of myrrh and desert blooms carried on a gentle breeze. Together they approached a circle of stones, worn smooth by countless years and arranged with deliberate care. This was the heart of the sands, a place where the boundary between worlds was said to be the thinnest. Here, the earth's breath was strongest, and the veil between waking and dreaming fluttered like a fragile veil in the wind. Amenhotep knelt, tracing his fingers along the edges of the stones. Whispering prayers that seemed to hum with the desert's own voice, Shem joined him, feeling the cold smoothness beneath his palms and the slow, steady pulse of something vast and eternal. The desert night stretched wide around them, the stars bright and steady above like watchful eyes. The whispering sands rose and fell in a gentle rhythm, carrying with them the stories of kings and priests, dreamers and travelers who had crossed these paths before. Kem felt the familiar pelvic call of the dreamscape, drawing him once again into the realms beyond. This time, the journey would be deeper, more profound, guided by the steady hand of Amenhotep and the silent presence of Neferka. As the prayer ended, the air shimmered with a soft light, and the desert seemed to dissolve into a tapestry of stars and shadows. The whispering sands became a bridge between worlds, carrying Kem forward into the vast, endless night where the Sleepwalker Pharaoh still wandered, steady and serene beneath the veil of stars. The shifting tapestry of stars and shadows enveloped Kem, carrying him deeper into the dreamscape, where time's boundaries softened and the edges of reality blurred like watercolors spilling on ancient papyrus. The desert's whispering sands had become a bridge, a delicate thread connecting the waking world to a realm where memory and spirit danced freely beneath the endless sky. Kem found himself once again walking beside Neferka, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh, whose presence was steady and serene, like the unchanging course of the Nile through the seasons. The Pharaoh's eyes held the weight of countless nights spent journeying through this vast, silent expanse, as that saw beyond the physical and touched the eternal. Around them, the dream desert unfolded in slow, endless waves of shimmering light and shadow. The air was thick with the scent of dry earth and blooming lotus, carried on a gentle breeze that seemed to murmur ancient secrets. The stars above blinked softly, their distant light a quiet chorus echoing the rhythms of breath and footsteps below. Neferka led Kem toward a distant horizon where a faint glow shimmered, like the first soft light of dawn poised just beyond reach. It was a place both familiar and strange, a gathering of forgotten memories and whispered truths, folded into the very fabric of the desert night. As they walked, the Pharaoh's voice was low and steady, carrying the calm authority of one who had walked these paths long before and would continue to do so long after. He spoke not in hurried words, but in measured phrases that fell gently into the silence, like the soft touch of sand on stone. The sleepwalker's journey, Neferka said, is not a flight from life's weight, but a crossing into its deeper heart. Each step traces the lines of history. Each breath weaves the stories of those who came before and those yet to come. To walk in dreams is to honor the endless rhythm of time, the rise and fall of empires, the flow of rivers, the quiet passage of souls beneath the stars. Kem listened, his own breath syncing with the Pharaoh's measured cadence. The desert around them pulsed softly, alive with the quiet energy of countless lives folded into the earth's ancient memory. It was a place where stories were not told aloud, but felt deeply, resonating in the very bones and breath of those who dared to listen. The glow ahead grew steadily brighter, revealing a vast oasis nestled among dunes that seemed to stretch forever. Palm trees arched gracefully over crystal-clear waters, their reflections shimmering like fragments of a distant dream. The air was thick with the fragrance of jasmine and myrrh, mingling with the dry warmth of the desert. At the water's edge, figures gathered silent and serene, clad in linen robes the color of moonlight. They were the dreamwalkers, the keepers of the ancient rites, who moved between worlds with quiet purpose. Their faces were calm, their eyes closed in gentle contemplation, as if listening to the desert's eternal song. Neferka approached the circle of dreamwalkers, and Kem followed, feeling the steady pulse of the gathering beneath his feet. The air hummed softly with unspoken prayers, a delicate energy that wove through the group like a gentle tide. One of the dreamwalkers stepped forward, a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes like polished obsidian. Her voice was a soft murmur, filled with the warmth of long-held wisdom. "You who walk the path between worlds," she said, "know that each journey deepens the thread of connection. Dreamscape is not merely a place of visions, but a living web of stories and souls. Here we honor the balance between light and shadow, waking and sleep, life and the afterlife. Kem felt a calm settle over him, a gentle assurance that he was no longer alone in this vast, quiet expanse. The Dreamwalkers formed a circle around the oasis, their voices rising in a low chant that resonated with the hum of the desert itself. The words were old and sacred, weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to stretch beyond time and space. As the chant deepened, the waters of the oasis began to shimmer with a soft, ethereal light. Images flickered beneath the surface visions of ancient cities rising from the sands, of kings and priests walking temple halls, of riverboats drifting lazily along the Nile's gentle current. These were the memories of a world long past, yet never truly gone, held safe within the dreamscape's embrace. Kem knelt beside the water, letting the cool touch of the oasis soothe his hands and face. The images beneath the surface felt like echoes of forgotten days, stories waiting to be remembered and honored once more. He reached out, fingertips skimming the water, felt the pulse of history flowing like a gentle current through his very being. Neforka's presence was a steady anchor beside him, a reminder that the Sleepwalker's path was both a journey of discovery and a sacred duty. To walk in dreams was to carry the weight of memory with grace, to honor the lives and stories that shaped the land and its people. The circle of Dreamwalkers closed softly around Kem, their eyes still closed, voices blending into a gentle murmur. The desert night wrapped around them like a shawl, the stars above steady and bright as silent witnesses to the eternal dance. In that moment, Kem understood the true nature of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's legacy, a gift, not of power or conquest, but of connection and remembrance. The dreamscape was a place where time's endless river flowed both forward and back, where the past whispered softly to the present, and the future waited quietly beneath the veil of stars. As the night deepened, the Dreamwalker's chant faded into silence, leaving only the gentle hum of the desert's breath. Kem rose slowly, the weight of the dreamscape's truths settling softly within him. Neferka's gaze met his once more, calm and steady as the endless night. "Remember," the Pharaoh said, "the Sleepwalker walks for all who dream. The path is long, the steps steady, and the journey without end. But in each breath, each moment of stillness, there is peace, a quiet light that guides us beneath the stars." The oasis began to fade, the shimmering waters dissolving into the soft glow of dawn. Kem found himself once again beside the riverbank. The cool touch of the Nile beneath his fingers, the waking world stirring gently around him. The temple awaited him, its stones warm with the first rays of sunlight, carrying the steady pulse of history and ritual. Kem knew his journey was far from over, that the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's path stretched onward, winding through the vast desert of time and memory. With a quiet breath, he rose and turned toward the temple, ready to walk the next step beneath the endless sky. The early morning sun filtered softly through the slender columns of the temple courtyard, casting long, gentle shadows across the smooth stone floor. The air was cool and still, carrying a faint trace of jasmine and the distant river's breath. Kem moved quietly through the familiar spaces, each step deliberate and slow, as if to preserve the calm that hung like a delicate veil over the awakening world. After his journey through the whispering sands and the dreamscape's tranquil oasis, a quiet resolve had settled within him. The Dreamwalker's path was no mere vision or fleeting trance. It was a living thread woven into the fabric of his days and nights. Each moment carried a soft echo of the eternal, a gentle pulse beneath the surface of ordinary life. As he entered the inner sanctum of the temple, the air grew cooler, tinged with the scent of myrrh and sandalwood burning in slender braziers. The walls around him were alive with the faint glow of painted hieroglyphs, their colors muted by time, but still vibrant in the flickering light. These symbols told stories of gods and kings, of journeys beyond the veil, and the delicate dance between life and death. Kam's fingers brushed lightly along the cool stone, feeling the carved shapes beneath his touch, a tactile connection to those who had walked these halls long before. The priests had always spoken of the temple as a living heart, its pulse echoing the rhythm of the Nile and the breath of the desert wind. We're here. The boundaries between the seen and unseen were thin, allowing glimpses into the vast tapestry of time. He settled onto a low stone bench near the altar, letting the calm seep into his bones. The quiet murmur of distant chanting rose softly from another chamber, a gentle reminder of the steady rituals that marked each day in this sacred place. Kem closed his eyes, drawing a slow, measured breath and letting the stillness gather around him like a protective cloak. The dreams of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh lingered at the edge of his mind, images of serene faces and silent deserts, of shimmering waters and starlit skies. They were invitations to explore the deeper layers of existence, to listen with more than ears and see with more than eyes. Each journey offered a fragment of wisdom, a gentle truth whispered across the ages. Slowly, a new vision began to take shape beneath his closed eyelids. It was a place both ancient and alive, a sprawling city built of sun-baked brick and carved stone. Nestled between the fertile banks of the Nile and the endless sweep of desert, the city hummed softly with the rhythm of daily life. The distant call of merchants, the steady beat of footsteps on worn paths, the soft murmur of water flowing through channels and wells. Kem felt himself drawn forward through the narrow streets, the heat of the midday sun warming his skin. The scent of spices and baked bread mingling with the earth and river. Children's laughter echoed faintly from a shaded courtyard, while artisans shaped clay and hammered copper with steady hands. Life here was a delicate balance between the abundance of the river and the harshness of the sands, between tradition and the ever-flowing passage of time. As he wandered, Kem's gaze fell upon a temple rising gracefully above the rooftops, a place of polished alabaster and gold, its walls alive with intricate carvings that shimmered in the sunlight. This temple was dedicated to Thoth, the god of wisdom and the moon's quiet light, the keeper of secrets and the guide of souls through the night. The temple's doors stood open, inviting him inside. Within, the air was cooler and scented with lotus and frankincense, the light muted and calm. Priests moved quietly through the chambers, their robes whispering softly against the stone floors as they tended to scrolls and offerings. The walls were covered with delicate paintings and scripts, each a silent testament to the knowledge gathered and preserved through generations. Kem's attention was drawn to a low pedestal where a single scroll lay unrolled. Manuscript written in delicate hieroglyphs, illuminated with soft blues and golds that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. The scroll spoke of dreams and journeys beyond the waking world, of the delicate thread connecting life to the realm of the gods. As he traced the symbols with his eyes, a familiar calm filled him, a steady current beneath the surface of thought. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh had been more than a dreamer. He had been a bridge, a guardian of balance between the seen and unseen, the physical and spiritual. His footsteps echoed not only in the sands of the desert, but in the hearts of those who sought to understand the mysteries beyond. A soft sound drew Kem's gaze to a figure seated nearby, a priestess with calm eyes and a gentle smile, her presence as serene as the temple itself. She offered a small nod of recognition, her voice a quiet murmur. The path you walk is old and steady, marked by those who listen to the silent rhythms beneath the world's surface. Kem returned the nod, feeling the weight of the priestess's words settle like a soft stone within. Here, in this place of stillness and wisdom, the journey continued not as a hurried quest, but as a gentle unfolding, step by patient step. The priestess rose slowly, leading him toward a chamber where soft cushions and woven mats were arranged in a quiet circle. The air here was thick with the scent of jasmine and myrrh, the light dim and soothing. Kem settled onto a cushion, the textures warm and inviting beneath him. Round the circle gathered a small group of priests and priestesses, their faces serene and attentive. They spoke not in haste, but in gentle voices, sharing stories of ancient rites and sacred dreams of the slow dance between life and the afterlife, the seen and the unseen. Kem listened as the priestess spoke of the delicate balance maintained by the Sleepwalker Pharaoh How. His nightly journeys were not escapes, but sacred crossings, weaving together the threads of memory, history, and spirit. The dreamscape was a place of healing and insight, a realm where the boundaries of time dissolved into a steady, endless flow. The group's chant rose softly, a measured cadence that echoed the steady pulse of the Nile and the gentle rustle of the desert wind. The sound was both ancient and timeless, wrapping around Kem like a soft embrace. He felt himself carried once more into the dreamscape. the edges of the temple dissolving into the vast night sky dotted with distant stars. In this place between worlds, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh appeared again, his presence calm and luminous beneath the moon's quiet light. His eyes held the steady wisdom of ages, reflecting the endless rhythm of dreams and waking life intertwined. Kem reached out, feeling the steady pulse of the dreamscape beneath his fingers, the gentle flow of time weaving through the sands and stars. The journey was ongoing, a path of quiet discovery, a steady light guiding him beneath the vast eternal sky. The soft glow of moonlight filtered through the high temple windows, casting delicate patterns on the smooth stone floor. Kem remained seated on the woven mat, his breath slow and steady, each inhale and exhale syncing with the quiet pulse of the night. The world outside had faded away, replaced by the tranquil realm of dreams and memory, where time's steady flow carried him gently forward. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's presence lingered nearby, a quiet guardian of the boundary between waking and sleeping, life and afterlife. His eyes, deep and calm, seemed to hold the endless sky itself, reflecting the stars' silent watch over the desert. Kem felt the weight of history and spirit entwined in that gaze, a timeless thread connecting past, present, and future. Around them, the temple's walls seemed to breathe softly, the ancient hieroglyphs shimmering faintly with the light of unseen flames. Each symbol told a story of gods and kings, of journeys through shadow and light, of the delicate balance maintained by those who walked between worlds. The carvings were a silent song, a lullaby woven into stone and color, inviting contemplation and peace. Kem's thoughts drifted back to the scroll he had seen earlier, the delicate hieroglyphs that spoke of dreams as sacred voyages. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's nightly wanderings were not mere escape, but a pilgrimage of the soul steps taken along the thin line where reality and spirit converge. It was here, in these quiet moments between breaths, that the mysteries of life revealed themselves gently, like the first light touching the horizon. The priestess beside him spoke softly again, her voice a calm murmur blending with the night's stillness. The dreams carry the wisdom of the ages. They are the breath of the gods, whispered through the silence to those who listen with more than eyes and ears. The Sleepwalker is their messenger, bridging the realms with steady steps and open heart. Kem closed his eyes, letting the words settle deep within. He imagined himself stepping once more into the dreamscape, the vast desert stretching endlessly beneath the shimmering stars. The cool touch of the night wind carrying scents of lotus and myrrh. The sands glowed faintly with the light of distant fires, each spark a story waiting to be told. In this quiet expanse, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh moved with a steady grace, his footsteps tracing patterns in the sand that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the earth itself. The stars above shifted slowly, their gentle light painting the world in hues of silver and indigo. It was a realm of subtle beauty, where every breath and step was a note in an endless melody. Kem felt the steady pulse of the dreamscape beneath his feet, a soft vibration that spoke of deep currents flowing unseen.
Ow.
The desert's whisper grew clearer, murmur of voices from distant times, like hidden treasures, like hidden treasures. These were not tales of conquest or glory, but of quiet endurance, of the steady rhythm of life woven through hardship and hope. He followed the pharaoh as they walked toward a distant mountain range, its peaks softened by the haze of night. The path was lined with ancient stone markers, each carved with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. These markers were like guides, gentle reminders of the journey's sacred nature. As they approached the foothills, Kem noticed a small gathering beneath a cluster of date palms. The figures there were cloaked in soft linen, their faces serene in the moon's gentle light. They were the Night's Watchers, the guardians of dreams and memories, those who tended the delicate balance between sleep and waking. One of the Watchers stepped forward, a man with eyes like polished lapis lazuli and a voice that rippled like a quiet stream. "You who walk the path of shadows and stars," he said, "know that every dream is a thread in the great tapestry of life. To walk in dreams is to honor the unseen, to carry the light of memory where the world grows dark." Kem felt a calm warmth spread through him, a quiet understanding blooming like a lotus in still water. The Night's Watchers moved with gentle purpose, their hands weaving invisible patterns that seemed to stir the very air, creating a soft glow that wrapped the gathering in a cocoon of light. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh knelt beside a shallow basin filled with clear water, surface reflecting the myriad stars above. With steady hands, he dipped his fingers into the water, sending ripples that shimmered like silver threads. The ripples carried visions of distant cities rising along the Nile, of priests lighting lamps and shadowed temples, of quiet moments beneath the eternal sky. Leaned closer, drawn into the soft dance of light and shadow. The visions unfolded slowly, each a gentle breath in the ongoing story of a civilization that had flourished and faded, leaving behind whispers carried on the desert wind. The pharaoh's voice rose again, calm and steady, weaving the images into a narrative both intimate and vast. The Sleepwalker-esque journey is a reminder that all life is connected by the unseen threads of memory and spirit. The past flows through the present like the river's endless current, and every step we take is part of the eternal dance. As the night deepened, the gathering around the basin grew quiet, their faces reflecting the calm light of the visions. Kem felt the weight of countless lives folded into the sands and stars, a steady current beneath the surface of time, a gentle force guiding all who dared to dream. The dreamscape began to shift once more, the edges of the visions softening like mist at dawn. Kim found himself standing beside the pharaoh once again, the cool night air carrying the scent of desert blooms and distant fires. The stars above shimmered with a quiet brilliance, their light a steady companion on the path. Neferic's gaze met his, calm and steady as ever. "Remember," the pharaoh said softly, "the journey is never truly complete. Each dream is a step, each breath a promise. To walk as a sleepwalker is to embrace the endless rhythm, the rising and falling, the light and shadow, the waking and sleeping." Kem nodded slowly, feeling the truth of those words settle within like a gentle tide. The dreamwalker's path was not a destination, but a steady, unfolding, a quiet journey beneath the stars. Guided by the whispers of the past and the soft light of the unseen, as the first pale hues of dawn touched the horizon, the dreamscape dissolved gently, leaving Kem once again beside the temple's stone steps. The air was cool and fresh, filled with the promise of a new day. The scent of lotus and myrrh lingered softly, a reminder of the night's sacred voyage. He rose with a calm heart, the steady rhythm of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey echoing softly in his mind. The world around him awoke, slowly the distant call of birds, the rustle of palm fronds in the morning breeze, the gentle flow of the Nile beneath the waking sky. Kem knew that the path ahead was long and winding, filled with moments of quiet discovery and gentle revelation. The dreams would continue to call him, each step a whisper, each breath a song beneath the endless sky. With a final glance toward the rising sun, he turned toward the temple's inner chambers, ready to walk the next step on the sleepwalker's steady journey, a path woven through time, memory, and the soft light of dreams. The sun had begun its slow ascent above the horizon, casting a soft amber glow over the temple's sandstone walls. The desert beyond stirred gently with the morning breeze, carrying the faint fragrance of blooming acacia and the distant murmur of the Nile's steady flow. Kem stood at the temple's entrance, the cool stone beneath his feet grounding him in the quiet rhythm of the waking world. Though the day had begun, the dreamscape still whispered beneath the surface of his thoughts, its steady pulse a gentle reminder of the night's voyage. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey was far from over. Each moment held the promise of new insights, unfolding like the delicate petals of a lotus flower beneath the soft light. Inside the temple, the air was calm and cool, tinged with the faint scent of sandalwood and lotus incense. The steady hum of daily ritual filled the chamber's soft chanting, the gentle clink of ceremonial tools, the whispered prayers of priests and priestesses attending to their sacred duties. And it was a world of quiet devotion, a timeless sanctuary where the boundary between the mundane and the divine grew thin. Kem moved slowly through the familiar corridors, his footsteps measured and deliberate, as if each step was a meditation. The walls, adorned with intricate carvings and vibrant frescoes, seemed to pulse softly with the life of centuries. Scenes of gods and kings, of daily toil and divine ritual, wove a silent narrative that wrapped around him like a gentle shawl. As he approached the inner sanctum, a small chamber bathed in the soft glow of oil lamps, Kem felt a subtle shift in the air, a delicate vibration that hummed beneath the surface of sound. It was as though the temple itself held its breath, waiting to reveal another layer of its ancient wisdom. The chamber was quiet, save for the faint crackle of the flames flickering against the dark stone. At its center stood a tall statue of Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, writing in the moon's pale light. The figure's serene gaze seemed to hold the calm of the night sky, inviting reflection and gentle insight. Kem settled onto a cushion before the statue, letting the stillness wash over him like a soothing tide. His thoughts drifted once more into the dreamscape, the vast, starlit desert where the Sleepwalker Pharaoh roamed with steady grace. There, beneath the endless sky, the lines between time and space blurred, allowing the soul to wander freely, carried by the silent currents of memory and spirit. A soft murmur reached his ears, like the rustling of reeds by the riverbank. Kem opened his eyes to see a priestess entering the chamber, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she too were attuned to the temple's quiet heartbeat. Her eyes, calm and knowing, met his with a gentle smile. "You have walked far in the night's embrace," she said softly, her voice like a gentle breeze. "The sleepwalker's path is a sacred one, woven with the threads of wisdom and shadow. Each step reveals a secret, each breath carries a story." Kem nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle within. The journey was ongoing, an unfolding of mysteries beneath the surface of everyday life. The dreamwalker was not merely a traveler of sleep, but a keeper of balance, guide through the liminal spaces where past and present, life and death met and mingled. The priestess moved to a low table where scrolls and vessels lay arranged with quiet precision. She picked up a small alabaster jar, uncapping it to release a faint scent of myrrh and lotasa fragrance, both calming and evocative. As the scent mingled with the cool temple air, Kem felt his mind soften, the edges of thought smoothing like water flowing over stone. "Tonight," the priestess continued, "you will walk beyond the familiar sands. The dreamscape holds many layers, each a deeper ocean of light and shadow. To journey further is to listen with a heart unburdened by fear or haste, to move with the rhythm of the unseen currents beneath the world." Kem closed his eyes, drawing a slow, steady breath. He imagined himself stepping once more into the dream realm, the soft desert night wrapping around him like a velvety cloak. The stars above shimmered faintly, their light a steady beacon guiding his way. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh appeared beside him, calm and radiant beneath the moon's gentle glow. His presence was a steady pulse in the quiet night, a beacon of balance and wisdom. Together, they moved forward through shifting sands and starlit skies, the air alive with the scent of night-blooming flowers and the distant murmur of flowing water. As they walked, Kem sensed the landscape begin to change. The desert's familiar contours softened into shimmering waves of light and shadow, folding upon themselves like the petals of a delicate flower. The air grew cool and still, filled with the quiet hum of ancient songs carried on the wind. They arrived at a circle of stones, worn smooth by time and ritual. Here the sleepwalker paused, his gaze lifting to the sky where constellations traced silent stories across the heavens. The stones glowed faintly, bathed in the soft light of a rising moon that hung like a silver lantern in the night. Kem knelt beside the stones, feeling their cool surface beneath his fingertips. The circle was a sacred space, a portal between worlds where the veil grew thin and the soul's journey deepened. The air here was thick with the scent of earth and jasmine, the quiet rhythm of the night's breath. The pharaoh's voice was a gentle murmur. Within this circle, the past and future meet. The sleepwalker steps beyond time's steady flow, touching the eternal moment where all paths converge. Here, wisdom is not found in haste, but in patient stillness, in the quiet dance of light and shadow. Kem closed his eyes, letting the words settle like a soft tide within him. He felt the steady pull of the circle's energy, a gentle current drawing him deeper into the mystery of the night. Images rose in his mind's visions of distant temples, of stars reflected in still pools, of silent processions moving beneath the watchful gaze of the gods. Each vision was a whisper, a thread in the great tapestry woven by the sleepwalker's steady journey. They spoke of lives lived with quiet purpose, of moments suspended between breath and dream. The desert. Night held their stories gently, cradled by the endless sky. As the visions faded, Kem felt a soft warmth envelop him, a glow that seemed to rise from the stones themselves, spreading through the air like the first light of dawn. The circle's power was a steady heartbeat beneath the surface of time, a reminder that all journeys, whether through dreams or waking life, were part of a larger, eternal rhythm. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh rose, his movements graceful and calm. Together, they turned away from the circle, stepping back into the shimmering sands and starry skies. The night carried them onward, a steady current beneath the vast, silent heavens. Kem felt the quiet strength of the Pharaoh's presence beside him, a steady light guiding his way. The dreamscape was a place of gentle revelation, where the soul could wander freely and the heart could find its quiet center. As they walked, the first pale hues of dawn brushed the horizon, softening the night's deep blues into gentle shades of rose and gold. The desert stirred with the promise of a new day, its breath slow and steady. Kem opened his eyes, the temple chamber returning to focus. The priestess was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of lotus and myrrh, a lingering reminder of the night's sacred voyage. He rose slowly, the calm rhythm of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey echoing softly within. The path ahead was vast and unending, filled with moments of quiet discovery and steady light. With a final glance toward the soft morning sky, Kem stepped into the temple's inner corridors, ready to walk the next step on the Dreamwalker's timeless journey beneath the endless, watchful stars. As the soft light of dawn slowly filled the temple's quiet halls, Kem's thoughts remained tethered to the night's journey. The steady rhythm of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's footsteps echoed gently in his mind, a calm refrain against the background of awakening life. Outside, the desert's golden hues shifted with the rising sun, but within the temple, the world still held a delicate hush, as if reluctant to break the spell woven by the night's dreams. The day's tasks awaited, yet Kem felt no urgency, only a patient stillness, a sense of being carried along a current both ancient and eternal. The journey through the dreamscape had opened a door, revealing a landscape where time flowed softly and secrets whispered like the desert wind. He wandered toward the temple's inner courtyard, where the palm trees swayed gently, their fronds rustling in a quiet symphony. The air was thick with the scent of blooming lotus and fresh earth, mingling with the faint aroma of frankincense burned during early rituals. It was a moment suspended between worlds, a breath held gently between night and day. Kem's gaze settled on the river beyond, where the Nile wound its steady course through the land. The water's surface mirrored the awakening sky, shimmering ribbon of light and shadow. Fishermen's boats drifted slowly along the banks, their movements graceful and unhurried, carried by the river's patient flow. The rhythm of the river was a quiet song, one that had echoed for millennia, cradling the lives of countless souls along its banks. As he stood there, the distant sound of chanting floated through the morning air, soft and measured. The temple priests were beginning their prayers, invoking the gods to bless the day and protect the land. Their voices rose and fell in a steady cadence, a ritual echoing the steady heartbeat of the world itself. Kem's thoughts drifted back to the Sleepwalker Pharaoh and the sacred journey he undertook each night. To walk between worlds was to embrace the delicate balance of life and death, waking and sleeping, light and shadow. The Pharaoh's steps were steady and deliberate, guided by wisdom that transcended time. The temple's walls seemed to hold the memory of these journeys, their carved stories a testament to lives lived in quiet devotion and reverence. Each figure etched into the stone carried a story of endurance, hope, and the eternal dance between the earthly and the divine. Kem found himself drawn toward a small alcove, where a basin of water lay, its surface calm and clear. The water reflected the morning light in shimmering patterns, like liquid sunlight caught in an endless dance. He knelt beside it, letting his fingers ripple the surface gently. The ripples spread slowly, mirroring the steady waves of the Nile beyond. The basin was more than a simple vessel. It was a symbol of the river's life-giving flow and the endless cycle of renewal. The water's quiet movement spoke of transformation and continuity, of beginnings and endings woven seamlessly together. In the gentle lap of the ripples, Kem sensed the presence of the Pharaoh's journey of flow that moved beyond the physical, reaching into the depths of spirit and memory. The Sleepwalker's path was not just a solitary voyage, but part of a larger current connecting all things. He imagined the Pharaoh walking alongside the Nile's banks, his footsteps silent on the cool sand. The night sky stretched overhead, vast and infinite, dotted with stars that shimmered like scattered gems. The air was thick with the scent of blossoming papyrus, and the distant sound of frogs croaking softly in the reeds. The pharaoh's gaze was steady, reflecting the endless expanse of sky and water. Each step was a measured breath, a moment of quiet reflection amidst the vastness. In the stillness, the boundaries between self and world blurred, revealing the delicate threads binding all life together. Kam's mind wandered to the priests who tended the temples, their lives devoted to maintaining the sacred balance. Their rituals, though slow and deliberate, were imbued with profound purpose, steady thread weaving through the fabric of time. Through chants and offerings, they called upon the gods to sustain the harmony between the seen and unseen realms. He pictured them moving through the temple's shadowed corridors, their voices rising in soft incantations. The flickering flames of oil lamps cast gentle light on the stone walls, illuminating the carved stories of gods and kings, heroes, and common folk. These stories, repeated night after night, were a lullaby to the land itself, steady rhythm echoing the heartbeat of the Nile. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey intertwined with these rituals, a dance between waking devotion and nocturnal revelation. Each night, the pharaoh's footsteps traced a path through dreams, carrying messages from the gods and wisdom from the ages. Each morning, the temple's quiet prayers renewed the sacred trust, grounding the divine in the world of men. Kem felt a deep calm settle within him, a quiet understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. The steady pulse of life, the flow of the river, the rustle of palm leaves, the soft chant of priests formed a tapestry woven from light and shadow, breath and dream. He rose slowly from the basin, the water's shimmering pattern still echoing in his mind. The temple's inner sanctum called him next, a place where stone and spirit met in quiet harmony. There, among the carved pillars and sacred statues, the story of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh continued to unfold. Kem walked with measured steps, each footfall a gentle beat in the temple's ongoing song. The walls, etched with scenes of ritual and reverence, glowed softly in the morning light. The figures depicted moved with a serene grace, their expressions calm and timeless. He paused before a relief depicting the pharaoh seated beside a small fire, the flames flickering gently in the cool night air. Around him were gathered priests and scribes, their faces illuminated by the fire's soft glow. They listened intently as the pharaoh spoke in a voice both steady and gentle, sharing the visions brought from the dreamscape. The scene was one of quiet communion, a moment suspended between worlds, where wisdom was shared not with haste, but with care. The pharaoh's words, though unseen, seemed to ripple through the stone, a steady current of calm insight. Again, imagined himself there, seated among the circle, feeling the warmth of the fire and the steady presence of the pharaoh. The night's journey was far from over. The stories carried within the dreamscape were threads waiting to be woven into the waking world. Outside, the temple grounds stirred with life as the day deepened. Birds took flight from the palms, their wings beating softly against the clear sky. The scent of fresh bread and brewed herbs drifted from nearby kitchens, mingling with the earthy aroma of the riverbank. Kem felt the gentle pull of the present, a reminder that the Sleepwalker's path was not separate from life, but a part of its quiet rhythm. The dreams carried the wisdom of ages, and the waking world offered its own lesson, steady, unhurried, and rich with meaning. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm light across the temple, Kem knew the journey would continue through dreams and waking hours, through silence and song. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's steady footsteps marked a path woven from the threads of time, memory, and spirit. With a calm heart and steady breath, Kem stepped forward, ready to embrace the next chapter in the endless dance beneath the vast, watchful sky. The day wore on gently, the sun tracing a slow arc across the wide, endless sky above the temple. The heat was tempered by the occasional breeze, soft and cool as it passed over the sandy courtyards and rustled the date palms standing tall like silent sentinels. Kem moved through the temple grounds with quiet reverence, each step a slow echo of the ancient rhythms that shaped this land and its people. The temple itself was a vast, living monument, 2 times steady passage. Its sandstone walls, worn smooth by countless years of sun and wind, bore the stories of generations carved in images both vivid and subtle. Gods with serene faces, kings in majestic poses, Humble workers bent in devotional, etched in a delicate dance of shadow and light that seemed to shift as the day deepened. Gum's gaze lingered on these walls as he walked, absorbing the gentle stories that seemed to ripple beneath their surface. The temple was more than stone and pigment. It was a repository of memory, a place where the lives of the past lingered softly in the present. The rhythms of the temple day were unhurried and deliberate. The priests moved through their rituals with calm precision, their voices rising in soft chants that wove seamlessly with the distant murmur of the Nile. Incense smoke curled like slow-moving water, filling the air with the sweet scent of frankincense and myrrh, grounding the space in quiet sacredness. Kem paused near the outer courtyard, where a circle of worshippers gathered around a low altar. They were engaged in a simple offering: fresh bread, ripe figs, and bowls of honey placed gently before a carved statue of Hathor, the goddess of music, joy, and feminine grace. The air around the altar was thick with reverence, as the gathered voices rose in soft hymns that seemed to ripple outward, touching every corner of the temple. Watching them, Kem felt the pulse of life beneath the stillness, the constant flow of belief and devotion that had sustained this place for centuries. It was a rhythm that echoed the steady flow of the Nile itself, unbroken and endless. As the sun moved westward, the light shifted softly, casting long shadows that stretched across the temple's stone floors. Kem turned his steps inward, toward the heart of the temple, where the most sacred mysteries lay hidden in shadowed chambers. This was a place few entered, reserved for priests, scribes, and those chosen to guard the temple's deepest secrets. The walls here were covered in intricate hieroglyphs, delicate symbols that told stories both sacred and arcane. Kam's fingers traced the cool stone lightly, feeling the subtle grooves worn smooth by the hands of countless scribes. Each symbol was a whisper from the past, a link in the chain of knowledge that bound the present to the divine. He found himself before a large stone door, its surface carved with the image of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the dead and protector of tombs. The figure's gaze was calm yet watchful, a silent guardian of the threshold between worlds. Kem took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the moment, a quiet invitation to step deeper into the mysteries of the temple and the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey. Inside, the air was cool and still, scented faintly with lotus and beeswax. The chamber was dimly lit by flickering oil lamps, their flames casting gentle shadows that danced softly on the walls. The silence here was profound, filled with a steady, unspoken presence that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. In the center of the chamber stood an altar. Simple yet powerful, a block of polished alabaster that reflected the soft lamplight like still water. Upon it lay scrolls and sacred objects: a reed pen, a small vessel of blue pigment, a handful of crushed lapis lazuli stones. These were the tools of the scribes, those who carried the wisdom of the gods and kings through the ages. Kem approached the altar with measured steps, his fingers brushing lightly over the scrolls. The delicate papyrus crackled softly beneath his touch, as if waking from a long slumber. The words written there were ancient chants, prayers, and fragments of the pharaoh's own visions from the dreamscape. He began to read quietly, the soft sounds of the ancient language flowing like a gentle river. The text spoke of journeys beyond the mortal realm, of visions gifted by the gods during the twilight hours. It told of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's travels through starlit deserts and shadowed realms, where time folded upon itself and the boundaries between life and death grew thin. As Kem read, he felt himself drawn deeper into the story, the slow unfolding of a world where dreams were as real as waking life, and the soul's voyage was guided by steady wisdom rather than haste or fear. The words were a balm, a quiet melody that settled the mind and opened the heart. He imagined the pharaoh once more, walking beneath a sky thick with stars, his figure bathed in the soft light of the moon. Around him, the desert whispered ancient secrets carried on the wind tales of gods and men, of creation and transformation. The pharaoh moved with calm purpose, a steady beacon in the vastness of night. The chamber seemed to breathe with the energy of those ancient journeys. The flickering lamps cast shifting patterns on the walls, illuminating carved images of the god Thoth, the moon's pale light reflecting in his ibis's eyes. Thoth was the keeper of wisdom and the scribe of the gods, a steady presence guiding the flow of knowledge through the ages. Kem's thoughts drifted to the sacred role of the scribes, the quiet custodians of memory who preserved the dreams and truths of their people. Through their hands, the pharaoh's visions were recorded, transformed into words and symbols that could traverse time and space. The Dreamwalker Pharaoh's journey was a thread woven through these records, a story of balance and insight, of gentle exploration beneath the vast, watchful sky. It was a path walked not in haste, but with the measured breath of one who knows the value of patience and stillness. Outside the chamber, the temple's rhythms continued, a soft murmur of footsteps, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind among the palms. The world moved slowly, in harmony with the steady pulse of the Nile and the eternal dance of sun and moon. Kem closed the scroll gently, the ancient words lingering like a soft echo in his mind. He rose with a calm heart, feeling the quiet strength of the temple's stories flow through him. The sleepwalker's journey was far from complete, a continuous unfolding beneath the endless sky. Stepping back into the sunlit corridors, Kem allowed the warmth of the day to wash over him. The temple, with all its sacred weight and gentle power, was a living reminder that the journey between worlds was one of constant balances, dance of light and shadow, of dreams carried softly into the waking world. The sun dipped lower, casting the temple in a soft golden glow. The day's calm was a steady bridge to the approaching night, when the pharaoh would once again step into the dreamscape, guided by the steady light of the moon and the whispering desert winds. Kem paused at the temple's entrance, feeling the gentle pull of that sacred journey call to him once more. The night would bring new visions, new stories carved into the silent fabric of the desert. And as always, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh would walk steadily beneath the stars, a quiet guardian of the eternal balance. With a slow breath, Kem turned toward the river, the steady flow of the Nile mirroring the unending rhythm of the world itself. The day would fade, the night would come, and the journey would continue soft, steady, and filled with the quiet light of ancient dreams. As the sun slipped gently beneath the horizon, the temple's shadows deepened, folding softly into the cool embrace of evening. The heat of the day gave way to a tender chill that brushed the skin like a whispered breath. Kem stood at the edge of the riverbank where the Nile's waters moved with timeless patience. Mirroring the fading light in rippling waves of gold and indigo, the world seemed to hold its breath, suspended between the fading glow of day and the quiet mystery of night. In these moments, the line between the seen and unseen blurred, a place where dreams began to stir and the pharaoh's journey awaited. Kem watched the water's surface, smooth and shimmering, a mirror to the sky's deepening colors. The faint sounds of evening filled the air, the gentle flap of birds settling into their nests, the distant murmur of a water wheel turning slowly, the rustle of reeds bending in the breeze. These were the soft notes of a world preparing to rest. A lullaby carried on the currents of wind and water. He breathed deeply, feeling the steady rhythm of the Nile beneath him, a pulse as old as time, steady and unwavering. It was this eternal flow that the Sleepwalker Pharaoh followed in his nightly wanderings, a current that carried him between worlds and through the hidden realms of dream. The temple behind him grew quiet, the day's rituals complete. The priests, having retreated into the stillness of their chambers, the flickering lamps within cast a gentle glow like distant stars caught within the temple's stone walls. Their light was steady and calm, a soft beacon in the growing darkness. Kem's footsteps led him back toward the temple's inner sanctum, where the sacred journey was said to begin each night. The carved reliefs along the corridors seemed to shimmer faintly in the twilight, figures caught in eternal poses of reverence and grace. He moved slowly, savoring the subtle textures of the stone beneath his fingertips, the faint scent of lotus and beeswax lingering in the cool air. The chamber at the heart of the temple awaited, a place where earth and spirit met in gentle communion. Here, beneath the silent gaze of carved gods and goddesses, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh prepared to cross the threshold into the realm of dreams. Kem entered the dimly lit room, the flicker of oil lamps casting dancing shadows on the walls. The air was thick with sacred fragrance, a blend of frankincense, myrrh, and the soft sweetness of blooming lotus. He moved toward the altar, its smooth surface glowing faintly in the lamplight. On the altar lay the symbols of the Knight's journey, a slender staff carved from ebony smooth and cool to the touch, a small, intricately painted mask that represented the visage of the god Osiris, lord of the afterlife, In a delicate bowl of water drawn from the Nile itself, its surface still and shimmering like liquid glass. Kem knelt beside the altar, his fingers resting lightly on the objects as if seeking to absorb their quiet power. He felt the steady pulse of the temple beneath him, a constant, gentle presence that linked past and present, waking and dreaming. The pharaoh's journey was one of balance, moving with calm certainty between the realms of light and shadow. It was a path walked not in haste or fear, but with the steady breath of one who understands the rhythm of the universe, the endless cycle of birth, death, and renewal. Kem's mind drifted to the stories carved in stone along the temple walls, the tales of kings and gods who walked these lands long before him. He imagined the pharaoh stepping into the night, his body moving with quiet grace through moonlit corridors and star-dappled deserts. The sleepwalker was both a ruler and a traveler, a bridge between worlds who carried the wisdom of the gods in his heart. Each step he took was measured and deliberate, a rhythm that echoed the steady flow of the Nile and the slow turning of the stars above. Outside the temple, the desert air grew cooler, filled with the scent of damp earth and flowering acacia. The wind whispered softly through the palms, carrying faint echoes of ancient chants and lullabies sung beneath the moon. Kem pictured the pharaoh's journey, unfolding beneath the vast canopy of night, walking through shadowed temples and quiet tombs, where the walls held secrets carved in silence. He saw the flicker of torchlight reflecting on golden relics, the shimmer of painted murals telling stories of creation and transformation. The night was a vast tapestry, woven from threads of light and shadow, memory and dream. The pharaoh's path traced a steady line through this tapestry, a journey guided by the steady hand of wisdom and the gentle touch of reverence. Kem's thoughts turned to the priests who accompanied the pharaoh on this sacred journey, keepers of knowledge and guardians of ritual. Their voices rose in soft hymns, echoing through the temple's stone chambers like a gentle stream. The chants were a steady current, carrying prayers and blessings across the boundary between worlds. He imagined the priests' robes brushing softly against the stone floors, their movements calm and purposeful. They carried offerings of fragrant oils and fresh flowers, symbols of life and renewal offered to the gods. Each gesture was slow and deliberate, part of a dance that wove together the seen and unseen. The pharaoh's dream walk was a shared journey, one that connected him with the divine and with those who tended the sacred flame. Through their combined devotion, balance between worlds was maintained, a fragile harmony held steady by steady hearts and quiet hands. As Kem reflected on these rhythms, he felt a gentle warmth spread through him, a quiet reassurance that the journey was safe and sure. The night was not a place of fear or uncertainty, but a realm of calm exploration and steady light. The temple's shadows deepened around him, enfolding the sacred space in a tender embrace. The flickering lamps cast a soft glow on the carved figures, their faces serene and timeless. The gods watched silently, their presence a constant reminder of the balance between life and death, waking and dreaming. Kam's gaze settled on a small statue of Thoth, the abyss-headed god of wisdom and the moon. The figure's eyes seemed to gleam softly in the lamplight, reflecting the pale silver glow of the moon outside. Thoth was the eternal scribe, recording the secrets of the night and guiding souls on their journey. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's path was one of learning and discovery, a journey marked by steady insight rather than sudden revelation. It was a path walked with reverence, patience, and the quiet strength of understanding. Kem rose from the altar with a calm heart, feeling the steady pulse of the temple resonate through him. The night's journey was about to begin. Again, the pharaoh would once more step into the dreamscape, guided by the moon's gentle light and the whispering winds of the desert. Outside, the stars had emerged in full splendor, scattered across the sky like scattered jewels. The air was cool and still, filled with the soft sounds of night, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of small creatures moving through the underbrush, the steady murmur of the Nile flowing onward. Kem took one last look at the temple, its walls glowing softly in the starlight. The journey between worlds was a constant dance, a steady rhythm that carried the Sleepwalker Pharaoh through the endless night. With a slow breath, Kem stepped outside, ready to follow the path once more. The night was deep and full of quiet promise, a realm where dreams wove their gentle spells in the soul. His journey unfolded beneath the watchful eyes of gods and stars. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's footsteps were steady and sure, a soft rhythm beneath the vast, timeless sky. The early morning light had not yet broken, when Kem found himself wandering once again beneath the expansive dome of the star-filled sky. The cool desert air brushed softly against his skin, carrying with it the faint earthy scent of the riverbank moist soil. Distant reeds and the subtle sweetness of desert blossoms lingering from the night's chill. The world was still, wrapped in a gentle hush, as if nature itself paused to catch its breath. This was the hour when the veil between waking and dreaming thinned, and the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey shifted from shadow to the first tender touch of dawn. The horizon began to blush faintly, a soft gradient of pale pinks and muted golds, promising the return of the sun's warmth. Yet for now, the moon's pale silver glow still ruled the sky, casting a gentle light over the temple ruins and the winding paths that led deep into the desert beyond. Kam's steps were slow and deliberate as he made his way toward the great sandstone pillars, ancient sentinels standing guard over the sacred grounds. Their surfaces were worn smooth by centuries of wind and sand, etched with hieroglyphs that whispered secrets of long-forgotten kings and timeless gods. He ran his fingers lightly over the cool stone, feeling the faint ridges beneath his skin, a tactile connection to the past, a bridge across the ages. The temple-esque worn walls held a soft echo of voices from long ago, the low murmur of priests chanting prayers, quiet shuffle of sandals on stone floors, the gentle clinking of ritual vessels. Kem imagined the flicker of oil lamps casting shadows on these walls, dancing like fireflies caught in a gentle breeze. The scent of burning incense lingered in the air, a delicate perfume of cedar, frankincense, and sweet myrrh that seemed to rise like a spirit from the stones themselves. He paused by the entrance to the inner sanctum, where a great statue of Anubis stood vigil, his jackal head tilted slightly as if listening to secrets carried on the desert wind. The statue's eyes, dark and polished, reflected the first pale light of dawn, gleaming softly like twin stars. Anubis, guardian of the dead and guide to the afterlife, embodied the balance between life's mysteries and the quiet peace of rest. Kem imagined the pharaoh's footsteps here, steady and sure, guided by the watchful gaze of the gods. The temple was more than stone and sand. It was a living place, a sanctuary, where the boundary between the earthly and the divine was drawn thin and shimmering. As the sun's first rays began to warm the horizon, Tem's thoughts turned to the sacred rituals that marked the pharaoh's daily life prayers offered at dawn to honor the rising sun, the giver of life and light. These ceremonies were slow and deliberate, unfolding like a gentle dance, each movement rich with meaning, but never rushed. He pictured the pharaoh standing before the altar, his voice low and steady as he recited prayers to Ra, the sun god, invoking the light to bless the land and its people. The air around him was filled with the soft rustle of linen robes and the faint, sweet scent of fresh lotus blossoms, carefully laid as offerings. The temple priests moved quietly around him, their hands steady as they tended the sacred fires and arranged vessels of water and oil. Their faces were calm and focused, their voices rising in soft hymns that echoed through the stone chambers like a gentle breeze. The rhythm of their prayers was slow and comforting, a steady heartbeat beneath the unfolding day. Chem imagined himself in that moment, standing in the cool shadows of the temple, feeling the warmth of the rising sun on his skin, hearing the ancient words spoken in reverence. The scene was both intimate and vast, a single breath in the endless flow of time. From the temple, his thoughts drifted beyond to the surrounding lands, the vast expanse of desert stretching away toward distant horizons, the fertile banks of the Nile winding through the landscape like a silver thread. The rhythm of life here was deeply connected to the cycles of nature, the rising and setting of the sun, the flooding of the river, the shifting of the seasons. The people who lived along the Nile's edge worked patiently with the land, their days measured by the slow turning of the earth and the steady flow of water. Kem could almost hear the soft songs of farmers tending their fields, the low murmur of water poured from clay jars, the gentle slap of oars as fishermen guided their boats across the shimmering river. Each sound blended into the next, creating a tapestry of calm and continuity. Life here was a steady rhythm, neither hurried nor frantic, a constant cycle of planting, harvesting, and resting. It was a dance as old as the river itself, one that shaped the lives of all who called this land home. Khem's mind wandered to the pharaoh's role in this world, a leader not just by power, but by connection to the land and its people. The pharaoh was a keeper of balance, charged with maintaining harmony between the mortal and divine realms, between earth and sky, life and death. In the quiet moments before dawn, the pharaoh's thoughts often turned inward, reflecting on the delicate threads that wove together the kingdom. The sleepwalker's journey was not just through the physical world, but through the layers of meaning that bound all things history, myth, and memory, intertwined like the flowing waters of the Nile. Khem pictured the pharaoh seated in the cool shade of a palm grove, the soft rustle of leaves overhead a gentle backdrop to his meditation. The air was thick with the scent of ripe dates and blooming jasmine, a fragrant lullaby that invited calm and contemplation. In this space of stillness, the pharaoh's mind moved slowly, tracing patterns of thought like the weaving of a tapestry. He considered the legacy of those who had come before, their triumphs and their struggles, their wisdom and their mistakes. Each story was a thread in the larger fabric, a lesson to be carried forward. The sleepwalker's journey was a way to gather these stories, to weave them into a living memory that could guide the kingdom through both light and shadow. It was a path walked with quiet courage and steady heart, a balance between honoring the past and embracing the unknown. As the sun lifted higher, the desert began to glow with soft warmth, cool shadows retreating before the steady advance of light. Khem imagined the pharaoh rising from his place of contemplation, ready to step once more into the duties of the day. The rhythm of life would quicken than the bustle of the marketplace, the clatter of artisans at work, the steady flow of visitors seeking the pharaoh's wisdom and justice. Yet even in the busiest moments, the memory of the night's journey lingered, a calm undercurrent beneath the surface of life. Khem's thoughts lingered on the quiet power of this balance, the way the sleepwalker moved through the realms of dream and waking, weaving a steady thread that held the kingdom's heart together. It was a journey marked by patience, reverence, and a deep understanding of the world's gentle rhythms. He pictured the pharaoh walking once again through the temple's shadowed corridors, the walls alive with ancient carvings that told stories of gods and kings. Each step was a quiet meditation, a steady pulse beneath the vast canopy of sky. The night's mysteries had given way to the light of day. But the journey continued, an endless cycle of dreaming and waking, shadow and light, sleep and vigilance. Khem's gaze drifted back to the river, where the Nile flowed steadily onward, carrying the promise of tomorrow within its gentle currents. The water's surface glittered in the morning sun, a mirror to the endless sky above. In that moment, he felt the timeless connection between all things, the earth beneath his feet, the sky stretching wide above, the river flowing with steady patience, and the sleepwalker pharaoh moving through the dreamscape with calm and purpose. The journey was far from over. It was a path walked with quiet reverence, a steady rhythm that echoed the eternal dance of life and death, waking and dreaming. As the day unfolded fully, the desert sun climbed higher, casting long golden rays across the land, touching the temple and the surrounding sands with a gentle warmth. The heat was soft and steady, wrapping the earth like a familiar blanket, not harsh but persistent, encouraging life to move in measured, deliberate rhythms. The sand shimmered under the light, each grain catching the sun's glow. A slow-moving sea of gold and amber stretching toward the horizon. In the heart of the temple complex, the pharaoh's chambers lay cool and quiet, sheltered from the midday heat by thick stone walls and shaded colonnades. Here, away from the noise of the court and the bustling streets beyond, the pharaoh could retreat to a place of stillness and reflection. The walls were adorned with frescoes and reliefs, softly muted by centuries, yet still vibrant with the stories of gods, heroes, and the eternal dance of life and death. The scent of polished wood mingled with the faintest hint of lotus oil, a delicate fragrance that seemed to calm the mind and ease the spirit. The soft rustle of linen drapes, stirred by a gentle breeze, brought a soothing rhythm to the quiet room. Outside, the distant murmur of the Nile's waters blended with the occasional cry of a desert bird, subtle symphony of nature's presence that reached even this secluded sanctuary. In this place, the pharaoh's thoughts often returned to the mysterious world of dreams, the ethereal realm, where the sleepwalker wandered far beyond the boundaries of the waking world. Dreams were regarded not merely as fleeting images or idle fantasies, but as messages from the divine, whispers from the gods carried on the currents of the night air. They held meaning and guidance, insight into the hidden patterns of the universe, and glimpses of the eternal. Kem envisioned the pharaoh reclining on a low divan, eyes closed, body still yet mind adrift in the delicate space between sleep and waking. The rhythm of his breath was slow and steady, each inhale and exhale a gentle tide washing over the shores of consciousness. The room seemed to dissolve around him, the colors softening, edges blurring, as the veil lifted to reveal the dream world beyond. In this liminal space, time lost its strict hold, stretching and folding like the shifting dunes outside the city walls. The pharaoh's spirit wandered, guided by unseen forces and the subtle currents of his own inner thoughts. He moved through scenes both familiar and strange lush gardens fragrant with blooming jasmine and pomegranate. Silent desert expanses under star-studded skies, ancient halls where the statues of gods whispered secrets only he could hear. The imagery was vivid yet serene, each vision flowing gently into the next, as if carried on the slow current of a river. The colors were soft, muted tones of gold, deep blue, and earthy ochre, evoking a sense of peace rather than urgency. Sounds were faint and distant, a lullaby sung by a mother. The distant murmur of a temple hymn, the quiet flutter of a bird's wings in the early morning. The pharaoh's dreams were not random, but shaped by the sacred rituals of his life. The prayers whispered before dawn, the offerings laid with care, and the timeless stories carved into the temple walls. They reflected the deep connection between the mortal and divine, a conversation between worlds that unfolded night after night. Kam's mind lingered on the role of the priests, those guardians of sacred knowledge who served as guides between these realms. In the soft glow of the temple fires, the priests wore robes dyed with indigo and saffron, their faces serene beneath simple linen headdresses. They chanted in low melodic tones, their voices weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to hold the very fabric of the night together. Their hands moved with practiced grace, drawing intricate symbols in the air and on the temple floors with sacred oils and powders. Each gesture was deliberate, a silent prayer and an offering to the gods, meant to open the doorways between waking and dreaming, to invite the pharaoh's spirit safely on its nightly journey. These rituals were slow and rhythmic, a gentle cadence that soothed the soul and prepared the mind for the mysteries to come. The flickering light of oil lamps cast dancing shadows on the walls, their golden glow softening the harsh lines of stone and wood. The air was thick with the scent of myrrh and cedar, a fragrant veil that seemed to hold the room in a tender embrace. Kem imagined the pharaoh's body resting peacefully on a raised platform wrapped in fine linens that felt cool against his skin. Around him, the temple was alive with quiet devotion, the faint footsteps of attendants, the soft rustle of scrolls being unrolled, the distant call of a priest marking the passage of the night's hours. In this sacred space, the boundaries between worlds were porous, and the sleepwalker's dreams took shape like delicate threads woven into a larger tapestry. They carried warnings and hopes, memories and prophecies, weaving together the past, present, and future into a seamless whole. As dawn approached once more, the dream world began to fade like mist in the morning sun. The soft, pale light crept slowly across the temple floors, touching the edges of sleeping figures and stirring them gently toward awakening. The pharaoh's breath deepened, the body relaxing fully as the spirit returned from its journey through shadow and light. Kem pictured the moment of awakening as a quiet, sacred transition, a slow unfolding like the opening of a flower, delicate and unhurried. The room filled with the subtle sounds of morning, the low murmur of voices outside, the distant cry of a hawk circling high above, the gentle ripple of water flowing through the temple's sacred canals. The pharaoh opened his eyes, the soft glow of day filtering through lattice windows and casting intricate patterns of light and shadow. His gaze was steady and calm, a reflection of the peace gathered from the night's journey. There was no rush, no urgency, only the steady pulse of life moving forward, one breath at a time. From here, the day would unfold with the quiet dignity of ritual and duty. The pharaoh would meet with his priests and advisors, hear the concerns of his people, and walk the sacred paths of the temple grounds. Yet beneath the surface of daily life lay the deeper current of the dreamer's journey, a constant thread of connection to the divine and the eternal. Kam's thoughts drifted again to the desert beyond the temple, where the sands shifted slowly beneath the relentless sun. There was a timelessness here, a quiet majesty in the way the landscape moved and changed with patient grace. The dunes rose and fell like the breath of the earth itself, carrying the echoes of countless footsteps, those of travelers, priests, and kings who had walked this land long before. The wind whispered softly through the dry grasses, carrying with it stories of distant places and forgotten times. It was a voice both ancient and new, inviting the listener to slow down, to breathe deeply, and to listen closely. In this vast, silent world, the Sleepwalker Pharaoh's journey took on a deeper meaning. It was a path not only through the desert sands or temple halls, but through the inner landscapes of the soul steady. Gentle pilgrimage toward understanding and peace. Kem imagined the pharaoh standing once more beneath the endless sky, the stars beginning to emerge as the sun dipped low on the horizon. The air was cool again, filled with the scent of blooming desert flowers and the faint hum of distant insects waking for the night. Here in the twilight hour, Pharaoh's dreams awaited once more soft shadows on the edge of consciousness, delicate threads weaving through the night's embrace. The sleepwalker's path was never-ending, a quiet journey through light and dark, memory and mystery, waking and sleep. And as the stars blinked softly overhead, the desert breathed a gentle sigh, carrying the pharaoh's dreams onward into the vast, eternal night. As twilight deepened into night, the desert sky unfolded like a vast velvet canopy dotted with countless stars. Each one shimmered softly, a delicate point of light suspended in the cool, still air. The breeze, gentle and almost imperceptible, carried with it the faint scent of blooming acacia and the earthy aroma of cooling sand. It was a quiet moment between day and night, where time itself seemed to pause and breathe, inviting all living things to slow down and rest. In the heart of the ancient city, the great temple stood like a silent guardian beneath the stars. Its stone columns rose tall and proud, their surfaces softened by centuries of wind and sun, yet still etched with the sacred symbols of gods and kings. Lanterns flickered gently along the pathways, casting warm pools of golden light that danced on the carved walls and the smooth floors beneath. Inside the pharaoh's chamber, the air was calm and still, thick with the subtle fragrance of frankincense and lotus. The soft rustle of linen curtains stirred as a faint breeze slipped through an open window, carrying whispers from the desert beyond. The pharaoh lay resting on a bed of finely woven reeds, draped in linens embroidered with threads of gold and deep indigo. His eyes were closed, the steady rise and fall of his chest, a quiet rhythm that mirrored the gentle pulse of the night. Tonight, the dreamer's journey was poised to reach a deeper, more profound stage. The boundary between waking and sleeping grew thin, like a delicate veil fluttering in the night air. It was a moment of transition, where the spirit prepared to slip away from the known world and enter the mysterious realms beyond. As the pharaoh's consciousness drifted into sleep, the chamber seemed to fade softly around him. The stone walls, the woven mats, the flickering lights all melted into a gentle haze, replaced by the endless expanse of the dreamscape. It was a place where the ordinary rules no longer held sway, where time bent and folded like the slow-rolling dunes of the desert, and where the whispers of the gods could be heard clearly by those who listened. In this sacred space, the pharaoh's spirit wandered freely, guided by the subtle touch of unseen hands and the steady rhythm of the night. The dream unfolded slowly, like a scroll being unrolled in the quiet light of dawn, revealing images and stories woven from the fabric of memory and divine will. The first vision was one of water calm, clear, and endlessly deep. The Nile flowed gently beneath the moonlight, its surface shimmering with silver reflections and the soft glow of fireflies dancing along its banks. Palm trees swayed quietly in the breeze, their leaves rustling like soft whispers in the night. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and blossoming lotus flowers. The pharaoh stood at the river's edge, barefoot on the smooth stones warmed by the day's sun. His gaze was steady and calm, taking in the vastness of the water and the endless sky above. He felt the pulse of life flowing through the river, the lifeblood of the land itself, and with it, profound sense of connection to all that surrounded him. From the water, the dream shifted smoothly to the desert beyond the vast sea of sand, stretching out under a sky ablaze with stars. The dunes rose and fell like waves frozen in time, their crests softened by the gentle touch of moonlight. The wind whispered through the grasses and scattered stones, carrying secrets and stories from distant lands. Here the pharaoh walked alone, his footsteps silent on the cool sand. His mind was clear, his heart steady, as he followed the slow, winding path through the desert night. Each step was measured and purposeful, a quiet journey toward understanding and peace. As he moved deeper into the dream, the landscape transformed again. Towering pillars of stone appeared, carved with the faces of ancient gods and kings. The Temple of the Night rose before him, its entrance framed by statues of jackals and falcons, guardians of the spirit world. The air inside was thick with the scent of incense and the soft glow of oil lamps, their flames flickering like distant stars. Within the temple's silent halls, Pharaoh encountered the priests of the Night Keepers of sacred knowledge and guides through the realms of dreams. They wore robes of deep blue and white, their faces serene and wise beneath linen headdresses. Their voices were low and melodic, chanting prayers that seemed to echo from the walls themselves. One priest stepped forward, holding a delicate vessel filled with fragrant oils and powders. With gentle hands, he anointed the pharaoh's brow and wrists, a ritual blessing meant to protect and guide the spirit on its nocturnal voyage. The oils were cool and smooth, carrying the scent of myrrh and cedar, grounding the pharaoh even as his spirit prepared to soar. The priest's voice softened to a whisper as he spoke of the dream's purpose, to reveal the hidden truths of the soul, to unlock the mysteries of life and death, and to guide the pharaoh toward the wisdom of the gods. It was a journey not just of the night, but of eternity, a sacred passage through the cycles of time and existence. With the blessing complete, the pharaoh felt himself lifted gently, as if carried on a rising tide of air and light. The temple walls faded away, replaced by a vast sky filled with stars and the shimmering glow of distant galaxies. The desert and river below became small and distant, part of a larger cosmos that stretched endlessly in every direction. In this cosmic dream, the pharaoh saw visions of creation, the swirling dance of elements, birth of stars, and the weaving of life itself. Colors flowed and mingled like liquid light, deep blues and radiant golds, soft purples and glowing whites, all merging in a delicate balance of harmony and change. The rhythm of the universe was slow and steady, a heartbeat that echoed through every corner of existence. The pharaoh felt himself part of this grand design. A single note in the endless song of the cosmos was a humbling and beautiful revelation, one that filled him with a sense of peace and belonging. As the dream continued, the pharaoh encountered familiar faces and gods, figures from stories carved in stone and whispered in prayer. They appeared not as imposing or fearsome beings, but as gentle guides, offering wisdom and comfort. Their voices were soft, filled with kindness and understanding, as if they were old friends welcoming the dreamer home. The dream's pace slowed even further now, moving like a quiet river flowing toward the sea. The pharaoh's spirit floated gently through the scenes, touching the edges of memory and prophecy, weaving past and future into a seamless whole. Each moment was rich with meaning, yet wrapped in a soothing calm that invited surrender rather than struggle. As the night wore on, the dream began to fold back on itself, like the closing of a flower at dawn. The vast cosmic landscape softened, giving way once more to the familiar temple halls and the quiet riverbank. The pharaoh's spirit returned gently to his resting place, the boundaries between worlds closing like a soft curtain. The temple was still and silent again, the flicker of lanterns casting warm shadows on stone and wood. The air was cool and fragrant, a sanctuary from the desert's harshness. The pharaoh's body rested peacefully, his breath steady and deep, held safe within the protective embrace of the night. Outside, the desert whispered on, carrying the dreams of kings and commoners alike beneath the endless stars. The wind sang a lullaby that echoed across the dunes, a timeless song of rest and renewal. And as the first light of dawn brushed the horizon, Pharaoh stirred gently, awakening with the calm certainty of one who has traveled far and returned home. The dreams of the night remained with him, soft threads woven into the fabric of his being, guiding him as he stepped once more into the waking world. The journey was never truly over. It was a cycle without end, a dance between light and shadow, waking and sleep. The Sleepwalker Pharaoh's path was one of quiet mystery and endless wonder, a story carved into the very stones of time. The dawn slowly stretched across the desert, its pale light spilling softly over the horizon, like a delicate wash of gold and rose. The world outside the temple seemed to yawn awake, the shadows retreating quietly before the gentle warmth of morning. The air, still cool from the night, carried the faint and sweet scent of desert flowers and the soft hum of awakening life. Its chorus of birds stirring from their nests, the rustle of small creatures among the grasses, and the distant murmur of the Nile as it continued its endless journey toward the sea. Inside the sacred chambers, the pharaoh remained still, cradled by the serene calm that followed the night's profound voyage. His eyes fluttered open, not abruptly, but as if emerging from a dream's gentle embrace. The rhythm of his breath, slow and even, matched the rising sun, steady, assured, and full of quiet purpose. The dreams he had traveled through were not simply images or stories, but lessons etched deep within his spirit. They were the whispers of eternity, the echo of the gods' voices, softly guiding him through the mysteries of life and death, power and humility, of the eternal dance between light and shadow. As you imagine yourself standing beside him now, feeling the cool morning breeze on your skin and the ancient stones beneath your feet, you sense the weight of this moment. The meeting place between dreams and waking, between the human and the divine. The temple priests, their faces calm and unreadable, approach silently. Their steps fall softly on the smooth floor, and their voices, when they speak, are low and measured, like the rhythm of the Nile itself. They remind the pharaoh of his sacred duties, not just as a ruler of land and people, but as a bridge between worlds, a keeper of balance, a shepherd of souls. The pharaoh listens with quiet resolve. He understands that his dreams are a sacred trust, gifts to be honored and woven into the fabric of his waking life. Through their guidance, he will lead his people with wisdom rooted not only in earthly knowledge, but in the deeper truths of the cosmos. Outside, the city begins to stir more fully. Traders open their stalls, the chatter of voices fills the air, and the aroma of fresh bread and spiced herbs drifts through narrow streets. Yet within the temple's sacred walls, time moves more slowly, holding space for reflection, renewal, and the silent power of the night's revelations. The pharaoh rises, his movements fluid and graceful, like a reed bending gently in the desert wind. Clad once again in regal linens embroidered with gold thread, he steps into the temple courtyard, where statues of gods stand silent but watchful under the brightening sky. Here, in the warmth of morning, he pauses to look out over the land he governs, the fertile floodplains of the Nile, the rolling sands of the desert, the distant hills touched by sunlight. It is a moment of connection, a silent conversation between ruler and realm, between dream and reality. He breathes deeply, the air filled with the scent of lotus and myrrh, grounding him in the present, even as his spirit carries the timeless echoes of the night's journey. The cycle of sleep and waking, of dreaming and doing, is a rhythm he knows well, a rhythm that shapes the very essence of life along the Nile. As the day unfolds, the pharaoh moves among his people with quiet strength and gentle authority. His steps echo softly in palace halls and bustling marketplaces, his presence a calm center in the ever-turning wheel of life. Yet beneath this outward calm lies the inner world shaped by dreams, visions of water and desert, stars and gods, silence and song. These dreams are not fleeting shadows, but threads of a deeper story, a story carved into the temple walls and whispered on the desert winds. They speak of journeys, not just through the night, but through the heart of existence itself. They remind the pharaoh and through him, all who listen, that life is a delicate balance of power and humility, of action and stillness, of light and shadow. Imagine yourself now, resting beside the Nile under the wide open sky. The river flows quietly at your feet, its surface catching the sun's first rays like liquid gold. The desert stretches out behind you, vast and silent, holding secrets older than time. The air is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of blooming acacia and warm earth. Around you, the city hums softly, but here in this moment, all is peace. As your breath slows and deepens, you feel yourself slipping gently toward rest, carried by the steady rhythm of the river and the endless dance of the stars above. The dreams of the Sleepwalker Pharaoh echo softly in your mind, a lullaby woven from the ancient past, a story of night and day, of journey and home. Let these images soothe you, the quiet temple, the shimmering river, the endless desert, the watchful stars. Let the soft voices of the priests and the gentle touch of the night's breeze guide you toward a peaceful sleep. The Pharaoh's story, carved in stone and whispered on the wind, is now part of your own journey. A reminder that even in the darkest night, there's light, and in every dream a path home. And so, as the sun rises higher and the world awakens, you rest easy beneath the vast Egyptian sky, carried gently by the rhythm of time, the pulse of the Nile, and the endless mystery of dreams. Good night.